This meeting of the Lee County Board of Commissioners will now come to order. I'd like to welcome everybody in our audience today. And the first thing, Commissioner Charlie Parks will be delivering our invocation today, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we thank you, Lord, for being our Lord and our God. We recognize, Father, that you're our Creator and that only through you are all things possible. We thank you for your word, that it's given us instructions, and that we ask, God, that we invoke those today, that we be honest and fair in all of our dealings, and that you guide our every decision. These things we ask in your most precious Son's name for us. In his name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda for today? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Don't need a second, but that's okay. Everywhere else you need a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next is the consent agenda. Any commissioners have any questions about any of the items in the consent agenda? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next on the agenda are public comments. And we have 5 who have signed up for public comments, and I'll remind you that when you do approach the podium, we've got 3-minute limitation for comments. Please state your name and your address. And first one on the list is Charles Staley.
I'm Charles Staley. My address is 3117 Hickory Hill Drive, Sanford, North Carolina. The 3 budget scenarios most recently presented by Dr. Moss and the Board of Education will result in property tax increases. With the Lee County's fragile economy and 12.7% unemployment rate, this will place further financial burdens on our working families and our small business owners. What hasn't been revealed in the BOE town hall sessions is the budget process used by the Board of Education in determining the 3 budget scenarios. As a taxpayer, I would like to have that budget process presented to the county taxpayers. For example, was the first priority to save core curriculum classroom teachers? Was outsourcing of facility management, transportation, and food services even considered? K through 12 education is the primary responsibility. Were elimination of the preschool program and the closing of Warren Williams considered as cost-cutting measures? It is the opinion of many who have attended these town halls that the Board of Education and Dr. Moss are using fear tactics to stir up teachers and parents and taxpayers of Lee County by threatening to cut teachers' middle school sports and popular programs. What perks and bonuses cuts has Dr. Moss proposed for himself and his administrators? Did Dr. Moss trade teacher slots for laptop purchases? Concerned citizens would like to know the answer to that. All of us support public education and want to see it funded to provide the core services required under the Constitution. The costly one-to-one laptop initiative is not a necessary expenditure. Just like you can't provide a textbook to a student and expect a student to learn the course content on his own, you can't provide laptops to all students and expect students to improve their reading, writing, and arithmetic skills on their own. Nobody wants to see teachers or teachers' assistants lose their jobs. Good teachers are the meat and potatoes in public education. The STEM lab, which Dr. Moss initiated, received much fanfare and praise from the local business leaders. Have we seen increased interest in geometry, trigonometry, calculus, chemistry, and physics as a result? It may be fun for students to explore in a lab situation, but what measures are being used to evaluate its effectiveness long term? The Board of Education has given a green light to Dr. Moss in all of these expensive technology endeavors. However, it boils down to this. If you have an effective teacher with an aptitude for teaching, a student who wants to learn, and a safe environment, learning will take place. Other countries spend far less on public education than we do, and yet their students outperform American students in math and science. I encourage this board, request that the Board of Education budget be presented to you that does not increase property taxes and that does not preserve a one-to-one laptop initiative at the expense of losing critical classroom teachers. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Staley. Next on the list is Sheila Barber.
Hi, Sheila Barber. I live at 232 Palace Drive in Sanford, North Carolina. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm a visual person, so I've brought a few things to kind of help me out. I really am displeased with what I'm hearing in the what I'm reading in the papers, and what I'm hearing, that our teachers are being held for ransom. And basically, that's exactly what is happening. I don't like the budget scenarios that have been given. I don't think there's been a lot of thought to it. My first visual is this: if Dr. Moss and company are at 86 million right now, and they're asking, and I think that's the figure I've seen, I don't know exactly, but if they're asking for $7.9 million more, I'd like to know where exactly they plan on spending it. Because that they're also saying this if the state cuts their budgets. Of course, we know that the state has said that they want to cut some, so I'm really concerned about that. I want answers, and I have, as a taxpayer, as the one who's going to have to fund this, I really think that's not much to ask. My second number is called 12.7%. Look at it. That's the number I think the commissioners need to be focusing on. That's the number of citizens in our county that we know of that do not have jobs. That's the number of families that may not be able to pay their rent next month, pay their mortgage next month, put food on the table, gas in the car, take the kids to school. They're not that, I know when I was unemployed for 3 years, I wasn't that worried about my child's education. I was more worried about if I could feed them. That's a critical number, and the number you guys really do need to be looking at. Have one more that I think is very, very important, and it's the number 4. This number is significant to me because every time I try to do the numbers of the 3 scenarios with this TI-86 calculator, I'm a public school graduate, I'm a CCC graduate, and in 2 months I'm going to have my bachelor's degree in business education from North Carolina A&T State University. I've used this calculator. I cannot for the life of me take the numbers that have been given and not see a property tax increase. I can't see it, no matter which way I do it. And I think there are a lot of other people. This number right here is significant. It's 4, because out of the 7 commissioners that are standing here looking at me, 4 of you told me that if we gave you a sales tax increase, we wouldn't get a property tax increase. This citizen plans on keeping your feet to the fire and making you realize that that's exactly what I think you need to realize, is that we don't need a property tax increase, and you can't do it without it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Frank Del Palazzo.
Frank Del Palazzo, 425 Rolling Hill Road, Sanford. This past year, for the first time in my entire life, I got involved in a local political race. And I did it because I was sick and tired of elected politicians throwing money at everything that happens. And I am still involved because I still see it. Dr. Moss has politicized his job. He's using it as leverage. He's using his position as leverage to try to hold as hostage the taxpayers of this county. And I'm sick and tired of it. We have a laptop initiative. We have a laptop program. When it started, I said, this is the silliest thing I've ever heard. Giving middle school kids laptops. What are they going to do except play games? I don't know how many of you gentlemen and lady know, but Wesley Middle School had to pull back the laptops for a week because a mother was at home, got on Facebook, and found her son on Facebook. She called the school, spoke to the assistant principal who went on Facebook and found 47 other students at the time they were in school on Facebook. My son goes to Wesley Middle School. My daughter goes to Southern Lee High School. The things that I see in the school actually are so that just make you so angry. I said to my daughter, we're talking about morality and kids in school, and she said, "Dad, you got no idea what goes on in the hallways. They're practically having sex." And I said, there's no discipline, there's no one, what are the teachers doing? She said they look the other way. And the reason they look the other way is because they're not getting any support. Now, we have to stop trying to throw money. I homeschooled my kids. My daughter, who is now in the National Honor Society at Southern Lee, through 8th grade, and my son through 6th grade. And it didn't take $4,000 or $5,000 a kid to educate them. Now, I know we've got the bureaucracy and there's all sorts of things going on there, but gentlemen and dear lady, this is madness. With an $83 million budget, Dr. Moss can't find $5 or $6 million to cut. I believe that his attempt has not been to answer the needs of the people of Lee County, but rather to work on building his own empire. And it has to stop. So I feel the only way to do that is for us to work for individuals to elect to the school board when the elections come up. But for now, the only other thing to do is to pull in the purse strings, because it's going crazy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Del Palazzo. Next is Keith Clark.
Keith Clark, 212 Acorn Drive. As usual, I found something to agree with Sheila on. I think the number you need to be concerned with is 12.7 unemployment. I think it is contrary to the direction of national trends, and it will not be affected by commissioners running into a classroom to raise Cain with the students for sending emails to their houses. Such conduct is unbecoming a commissioner. I wonder what the county manager would think if it had been one of the divisions that reported to him. It would be a violation of the county ethics policy. Now, you will have before you tonight the opportunity to show what your intent is regarding your county ethics policy. You have a commissioner who is running loose, who runs to one school and says, "If you get me look around, I'll see you lose no teachers."
Mr. Clark, I'm ruling you out of order. We have a policy that you cannot attack any individual commissioner. So please keep it to the issues, but don't be attacking a commissioner. Mr. Hoyle, am I within my rights?
Let's suppose, I can understand, Madam Chairman, why you take the position you do. You do not, let me say there are people on this board who do not want the truth out. For example, one of the people who spoke here tonight followed a well-practiced tactic. They got up here and acted questions and played dumb. Well, I want to hear this. I want to hear that. Why don't they come to the table with the answers? Why don't they come to the table with the answers that not one dime of county money was spent for those laptops? Why don't they come with that answer? No, they come with questions. I heard in a commissioner's meeting that Mr. Moss had a double set of books. I heard that he would have to get by on $1.5 million less. He is now under vicious attack because people are not discussing the quality of job that he's doing. He's under attack because he has shown that he's able to get money as justified for the school system. And he has been attacked. People have been in classrooms. People have been asked to leave meetings to which they were not a party. And this kind of conduct is unbecoming people in the role in which they serve. And when you play games with your ethics policy, you have cut it all off. No person regardless of the kind of position they take, has any reason to believe that there's honesty, or commitment to honesty from this commissioners.
Thank you for your comments. Martha Underwood?
My name is Martha Underwood. I live at 3309 Westcott Circle here in Sanford. I would encourage you, County Commissioners, to create a win-win-win budget that benefits and respects everyone in Lee County. During these tough economic times, we all have to belt tighten. Our state constitution limits government debt, but lower revenues mean quality of life must change, but not necessarily decline. Let's seek the hidden benefits of rethinking and reprioritizing so that we can get rid of what does not work and encourage what benefits all Lee County citizens. As we watch gas and food prices soar and jobs continue to be iffy, both government and we residents have responsibilities to pay our bills. When I suggest a win-win-win budget, the first win belongs to education. We are proud of Central Carolina Community College and their many programs that get unemployed people quickly into new self-supporting careers. However, I am concerned over the 2 K-12 school district town meetings that I attended. At times, they resembled pep rallies while sidestepping answers to substantive issues about cost-cutting while preserving quality education. Emotions do not pay bills. Emotions do not guide critical analysis and innovative solutions. I asked the school officials and commissioners to find cost-cutting ways to keep our teachers in the classroom while cutting the frills. For example, photocopy less. Students writing out sentences might improve their penmanship. School bus policies could be restructured so that closer students provide their own transportation, like walk or ride a bike. With gas prices so high, the policy of stopping in front of the home of every kindergartner in first grade for bus pickup could be recrafted into neighborhood stops. If a parent feels a young student cannot go 2 blocks alone, maybe the parent walking with their student will also help reduce America's obesity problems. Parental volunteer manpower in schools can also teach students the importance of an education, and kids should work hard at this privilege. By the NC Constitution, county government is responsible to fund school facilities and carry the debt for building and repairing them. The state is to fund daily school operation. Do not let the state push their fiscal responsibilities down on Lee County. Thank you, commissioners, for having one of your number visit each school to learn what the concerns of the students and the faculty have. In attempting to address these issues, I trust elected officials will design amiable strategies to get this downturn with quality education. Second win in the county's win-win-win budget are other county departments. We need trash collection, though perhaps leaf and clipping pickup can be reduced to save money. We need police, fire, and emergency management. These departments have been aggressive about finding
Ms. Underwood,
non-taxpayer
your
revenues.
3 minutes are up. Okay.
May I ask to have another 30 seconds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Besides health, veterans, seniors, the poor, family services, many departments should not have to take tighter budget cuts in order to help the schools get what they want. The third win in a win-win-win county budget is the taxpayer. Whether our county's needs are provided through federal, state, or local government taxes, it still comes out of we, the taxpayers' wallets. Nobody is giving us a budget bailout on my grocery bill or at the gas pump. Please find ways to hear and consider taxpayer input on the budget so that working together we may design ways to continue our good quality of life within limited funds. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, old business, the Golden Leaf Grant with Frontier Spinning. Mr. Hutes?
Madam Chairman, Board of County Commissioners, you have in your packet updated documents that are related to the Golden Leaf Grant that we're looking at with Frontier Spinning and the Golden Leaf Foundation. You have, you should have in your packet an equipment lease, a performance agreement, and then an actual grant agreement. The equipment lease and the performance agreement we talked about at the last meeting, and there have been a few changes to the equipment lease that need to be noted. You'll see in terms of the lease payments that would be coming from the company to the county, that number has been reduced from the original number that you saw last month. We did that because we took out the risk of loss clause and also the insurance clause after talking with the company to try to actually buy additional pallets during the course of the lease, and we had agreed in that first agreement to pay for as many as, or as much as $210,000 worth of additional pallets during the course of that lease.
Who is the we?
We, the county.
I was involved in some of that.
Yeah.
I think it's usually me as in we.
So basically what you see now is a lease agreement for the equipment between the company and the county that has a 5-year term on it. We're going to buy as many pallets as we can for $1 million. Lease those to Frontier Spinning. We get the payment of $13,290.69 per month back over a 5-year period. And at the end of the 5 years, we should be able to recover whatever pallets are left at that time that haven't been broken or abused or lost in the whole process. And so we'll be collecting those at the end of that 5-year period.
Let me ask a question about the recovery of pallets, assuming that can be done. I know a lot of these will be going to Central America, and they get used for a lot of other purposes. Very difficult to control. Is it really our expectation that we are going to recover a majority of these pallets, do you think?
We'll be able to recover some of them, and really, there's only one use. They're very specified in terms of how you use those things. But they, like you said, they'll be in a lot of different places. They'll be in Central America. They'll be at several facilities here, and then also at the ports.
You may not know some of the Central Americans that I know, but they're making huts out of them and line their walls with them and all kinds of stuff. But and that's not to say that I don't think that that's unreasonable to expect a pilferage and loss. I assume that happens with these things, and that's planned. I guess do we realistically, though, have another use for them at the end of the 5-year period? Or do we think Frontier will want to sustain the use of them, or maybe let Parkdale have a few of them or whatever?
I suspect that will probably happen. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't see the county getting.
Yeah, I just think it's a pallet business.
The discussion with Frontier was that they'd make a good faith effort to return as many of them to us as they could. And then at that point, the county would declare them as surplus and try to sell them.
Why wouldn't we just want to, anticipating a continued use of them, whatever's left, just continue to lease them to Frontier? Can't we do that?
If they wanted to continue the lease, we could do that.
Okay.
I got a question. I've looked at this contract, and I think I saw an email where it said the county attorney was in agreement with this document as written. Is that not true? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve it as presented.
We're talking about 3 documents, Doc. Are you referring to the grant agreement, the performance agreement, and the lease agreement, all of those?
I'm saying I want us to approve this document as presented, just like it's presented. From what I understand, the county attorney's looked at it. He says it's okay. If it's okay with then I'd say it ought to be okay to go ahead and approve it.
I don't think the documents are in question. I think what is in my mind, the question is, this is not the same agreement we initially started with. Is that correct?
The equipment lease looks different today than it did 2 weeks ago. That's correct.
Okay, and how does that really, you and the county manager can explain, what does that really mean to me in dollars and cents?
And actually, the way this thing reads right now, there's actually a better return to the county than the original agreement that we had.
Okay, well, tell me how.
Because we're getting paid the $750,000 principal back plus the interest, whereas before we were just going to get the $750,000. So the total payments back to us will be $796,000. One of the concerns I had in the lease was a lot of what Commissioner Womack said was, how are we going to track these? How are we going to track that they were destroyed or lost in the ocean or whatever? So I felt like the insurance piece of this was a waste. We could not possibly do what they were that. So I wanted to eliminate that, and also eliminate us having to try to buy more pallets during the lease. So in our discussion, we were able to get 2 provisions out. Basically, those 2 provisions where we would have, they'd be insured, and that we would get, or we would have to buy pallets that were lost or misplaced or whatever. And I wanted it to just be a true operating lease where they would pay us the money back, and at the end of the lease, it's the end of the lease. So the new agreement's a lot cleaner and a lot simpler. And
anything we have left, we declare it surplus, and we're able to sell those.
or if there's enough returned, we can turn back around and try to lease them again.
I have a question. All you have to do is tell me you get 46,000 more.
I was trying not to get on TV saying that.
Mr. Hayes?
Yeah, I had wondered about this. First, I think this is all predicated on a large grant from Golden Leaf, $1 million. So it's a sort of win-win. And the $750,000 plus that we get back, we're going to be able to put into some type of a loan program you've considered for small businesses. Is this correct?
That's correct.
I wondered about this. At the end of the 5-year lease program, and of course that's as long as it is because that's what the grant specified. Do you have reason to believe that it might be renewed, that there might be a sufficient growth and interest in what has been accomplished that Frontier might wish to say, we'd like to do this again, and this could be something that we would consider 5 years from now?
You mean to obtain another grant from Golden Leaf?
Exactly. Something.
If they have any money.
I think this is probably an opportunity for this particular situation. I think that Golden Leaf, and Golden Leaf is obviously open to helping those communities that were tobacco dependent again and again. And if we have another opportunity, maybe for another company, maybe something like this might be able to work as well.
Right. So again, this would help the county. It helps Frontier. It helps the Port Authority. It helps cotton producers. There's for the public's benefit. There's some real there's real help here to our local economy and our state economy, and I believe the Department of Commerce is supportive of this very much so. Mr. Crumpton, I believe you said that you had been working with Mr. Hughes, and we asked if the attorney had read this and was happy with it, and he is, and I believe you have signed off on it. Is that correct?
The first 2 agreements, yes, sir. The grant agreement, I think there's still some questions that we just need to ask tonight and make sure we're good on the grant agreement.
Okay. Are we not up against a deadline?
Well, the company is pushing us. They're very anxious. I think they've been waiting. But we didn't get the grant agreement until Friday, I believe. So we've had the weekend to look at. I think there's some questions. I think we just need to answer those questions here, and then I feel,
Are you gonna ask a question, or we need to?
I think you all have the list, so I'm gonna let you fire off.
Since I think I fired first,
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to repeat that I'm on the record as saying that I think that this is a good deal for the county and for Frontier. Rarely will you hear me say that sort of thing when it comes to incentive packages, but this is one of those deals that's close to perfection as you can get, I think, in the business that we're in, given that it doesn't put at risk, notwithstanding the fact that we were told it wouldn't put at risk taxpayer dollars and it wouldn't cost us anything. So we're not bearing any liability or risk in that we don't have to venture forth anything. That's as close to perfection as you can get. However, in this grant agreement, the way I read it, if you look down on, and this is the first time we've seen this, down on page 2, paragraph 11, it says, a sum equal to 20% of the total amount of the grant will be retained by the foundation until the grantee completes its obligations under this grant, including submission of a final report on the project funded. Now, I've been in the contracting business a lot of years, and I've seen holdbacks before, and that's what this smacks of, is a holdback. If it's a holdback, somebody's got to front $200,000. Now, if Frontier's got that $200K, Counselor? Yeah.
Mr. Hoyle, can you put your,
We will complete our obligation when we get a lease signed, leasing out things, and we pay for $1 million worth of pallets.
So you're saying that, basically it says here, completes its obligations to the grant, including its submission of a final report on the project funded, okay? Now, does that mean we just have to say this is what we're gonna do with the money?
My understanding is Mr. Hughes has discussed this with them, and he finds that when we put in our bid to buy the pallets, we're gonna have to put up half of the cost. And then the remainder of the money will be due when they're delivering the cost, which means we'll make 2 requests to them
Okay.
to pay us the $1 million.
So let me just,
That completes our obligation under it.
okay, let me just clarify then. I guess these things there's a kind of a cookie cutter contract that they use, and that's what we're looking here. So this isn't a typical kind of grant. We're going through the formality of a holdback, but in actuality, we're the grantee as the county. We're going to be able to collect the money without having to put up any capital, any taxpayer capital, without Frontier having to put up any capital. Basically, we're going to get the full amount before they actually execute their part of the arrangement, right?
Right.
Okay.
We have the obligation, and in this case, we've run the scenario of putting 50% down on the pallets when we place the order, and then pick up the remaining 50% when the order is delivered to us. There wouldn't be any county money involved. And I've run this by Ted Lord with
Okay.
Golden Leaf, and he assures me that that scenario worked just fine.
Okay.
Typically, when Golden Leaf has done grants in the past, and we've never had one like this before, so this is honestly the first time we've ever looked at anything like this. It might have to do with job creation in some cases, working with businesses or maybe investments that they would need to make in the state or other kinds of things. And that performance then would be monitored. And then once that performance is completed, they've created all the jobs, then they would pay that 20%. So I think you're right, it's
Okay.
kind of a boilerplate.
Well, then any objections I would have had to this agreement, I think are put to bed. If there's no, again, I'll emphasize, if no taxpayer dollars are being put up, and if we're not putting at risk the county for any liability on this contract, I think it's a smart thing to do.
Well, I've dealt with federal contract before, and they have certain criteria you have to meet.
Yeah.
And once you've met that with your paperwork, then they release the balance of the money.
Today, in this particular project, we're talking about retaining jobs and then purchasing cotton. And, we will monitor that for a 5-year period. Now, we did receive an email back from Ted Lord today with that information in there, that the scenario that we presented to him was just fine. I hope you got a
Okay.
copy of that.
No, I haven't seen it yet. But the one other thing I'd like to say is I would like to for at one point, if you have the opportunity, Bob, if you would get engage Parkdale, I'm sure they're monitoring this thing. I'm told that they may be able to use the same kind of pallets downstream. It would be nice to know that if we've got something that's going to be salvaged or reused later on, if they would have a market for it or want to use it, I think that'd be a smart thing to just do a check with them as well. And then also to check with Frontier if there's a chance that they would like to reuse those pallets beyond the 5-year period, just to know what's the next step that we would
can
do
do that.
after the fact.
You can certainly do that.
I have one other question, Bob. In the original agreement, they were supposed to pay us $16,965 a month. In this one, we boiled that down to $13,000. Why?
Well, because we took, in the original agreement, we had said that we would buy replacement pallets during the course of that 5-year lease agreement. We took that out. We're not buying any pallets valued at $210,000. We're not doing that at all. So all we're doing is we're purchasing pallets, we're leasing them to the company Frontier Spinning, and then they pay us a lease agreement, and there's no obligation on our part to buy replacement pallets.
So that's the sum that we're asking for per month. What is that based on?
That's based on the principal and interest.
The agreement that they would pay us $750,000 back, they're basically getting the benefit of the $210,000 as part of this grant, because they're not paying back the entire $1 million. So that's really that's to their benefit.
Charlie, did you see that risk of loss on number 6?
I'm sorry?
In that old agreement, do you have that?
Yes.
The risk of loss, there talks about buying $210,000 worth of
Right.
pallets. And that's deleted.
That's sort of what it was for. Okay. All right.
Commissioner Odom,
Yes. I just said I wanted to amend the motion to approve all 3.
you want to amend his motion to approve all 3 documents. Is there any further discussion?
Call the question.
Well, do y'all have the grant agreement in front of you?
Yes.
Mr. Hoyle, will you interpret paragraph 6H for me? It says grant funds are to be used for charitable, tax-exempt public purposes as defined by Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Service Code. Does that mean that
Our use of the money that we get out of this is covered by that provision.
See, because
We,
I interpret grant funds to be what we're getting from Golden Leaf. And so my question is, if that's the way this is written, is Frontier Spinning considered a charitable tax exempt organization?
It's the purest form of corporate charity that I could think of.
Well, and there's a lot of reporting requirements in here, and who's going to do that, John? You know, you can see the Department of Commerce fingers in this because Frontier is agreeing to retain the 1,014 full-time jobs at its North Carolina operations. I'd like to know how that's broken down. What's Lee County's employment numbers and their others? This is a cumulative.
Do you have those numbers with you? I did
I
not
don't
bring
have
them
it
with
written down,
me.
But they're interested in, Golden Leaf is interested in North Carolina. Okay, and the reason we have an opportunity to do this is because their headquarters is located right here in Lee County.
Let's go back to
Charlie,
Linda's original question, though, to Mr. Hoyle. The way I read this is that the proceeds that we get would have to be to fund activities to meet charitable, education, scientific, tax-exempt public purposes. We talked about helping other businesses and other things. So are we restricted in how we're going to use it?
No, we are not.
But this says that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The grantee, they're making a grant they can make grants to either 501c3s or they can make them to governments. They make them to governments all the time, and they do some 501c3s. In this case, we're not doing a 501c3 organization, we're doing a government. That government is eligible to receive funds from the Golden Leaf to administrate through this process. Now, the lease agreement, performance agreement, and then the grant agreement are all part of that entire package. The commitment that Frontier is making is part of that package. We wouldn't be able to receive that grant if Frontier wasn't part of the deal.
Well, and I'm just uncomfortable with that language because, I don't want to be restricted, as we get these funds back in to say we can't use it for small business revolving fund.
Madam Chair, I think the operative language in this thing, if I recall the training we got in School of Government recently, is that the tax exempt public purpose is the operative language here. And I think that what we're referring to, it certainly does sound a little unusual because we're not a charity organization in the typical sense. But what we are performing a tax exempt public purpose by providing a revolving fund downstream for small business development. It's economic development money. Actually, I prefer the term economic growth money that allows us to grow the tax base, to grow the job opportunities in Lee County, and it's performing a public purpose which the courts recognize that county government does perform.
Mr. Hughes, maybe you need to explain again where this money is derived from. Where do we get this money? The Golden Leaf Foundation.
Golden Leaf Organization Foundation is an animal that was created. Say animal, that's kind of derogatory, but it's an organization that was created to really assist tobacco-dependent counties. This is out of a lawsuit that occurred between the tobacco companies and all the states. I think all the states have some kind of a program like this, and they've decided in different states different types of programs. Here they set it up for Golden Leaf to be able to do some things. They also set up this money that's coming from tobacco companies to also provide some assistance on the public health side. Something related to tobacco. So it's money that's coming from the tobacco companies to the state of North Carolina. The state of North Carolina decided Golden Leaf Foundation was going to be the custodian of this foundation, and those funds are then offered to communities that are tobacco dependent to do these kinds of things with.
See, I think all of us know that, but the question I have though is Section 501c3 though the appropriate thing? Shouldn't that be, we as the grantee, shouldn't that be for county government? Rather, is there another clause that pertains to us better than 501c3?
Yeah.
If you look in paragraph 7, this states it again, page 2 to my colleagues, about the 4th line down. It says, it, meaning grantee, agrees that it will use the funds from this grant only for charitable, educational, or scientific purposes, and that it will not use the funds from this grant in any way that would result in or give rise to private inurement or private benefit. There's just several things in here, and quite frankly, I loved this concept when I first heard it, but I am very uncomfortable with the terminology in this grant. And I know our attorneys have looked at it, but I'm probably the only one here who feels that way.
Madam Chairman, I've called the question. I'd like to put this to a vote. I understand your discomfort. I'm comfortable with what I've read and the involvement of our county manager as well as our attorney and Mr. Hughes, and I think he's done a very good job. I think this is a real good opportunity for Lee County, and I would hate to see us dismiss it based on some of these nuanced technicalities. I understand what a 501c3 is, and I understand the nature of this myself, and I just don't have any problem with it. And I think we should put it to a vote, because we could sit here all night and talk about these little ticks that some are inclined to have, and I think we should vote it up or down.
Madam Chair, if I might ask the gentleman if he would be willing to amend his motion to include one more double check on those specific line items in the agreement, because after you just drew my attention to paragraph 7, I was focused earlier on paragraph 6H. Reading paragraph 7, I could see where that probably should be modified, at least for the long term. If the gentleman would revise his motion so that he would move to approve all 3 agreements conditional on a re-review by our attorneys, double checking that language to make sure that it's satisfactory and that we get an acknowledgement from the Golden Leaf that would indeed meet the legal parameters of those expenditures, that we would double check that. and then if necessary to
The
make.
problem I have that, the county attorney's already said that it's okay. He's ready to look at it. We can beat this thing to death. All I'm looking at is the fact that there's $1 million out there. And that $1 million is primarily gonna help North Carolina. We're going to get crates that we can ship to Wilmington.
Yeah.
It's gonna create jobs.
And I don't think that I'm not think she's objecting to the approval. I think what she's saying is we have a responsibility not to do something that might be perceived as being illegal by somebody. I mean, we just want to make sure that we're meeting the legal specifications. And I know the attorney has looked at this, but I'm not sure that we've communicated directly with Golden Leaf to verify that this language is exactly the way it needs to be structured, or it can't be altered, and that it is perfectly legal to do exactly what we're doing.
Madam Chairman?
And plus,
may I make a
Yes,
comment?
sir.
Okay. We started down this road, I think I mentioned last month, about 8 months ago. Golden Leaf has been involved with this the entire way.
Right.
The county's been involved with this, the EDC's been involved, Congress has been involved. These, the application that Golden Leaf received from us explains how the money would be received by the county, how it would be spent by the county, the kinds of agreements we would need to carry forth, and those are the agreements that we have in front of you tonight. The Golden Leaf looked at this whole situation, all these questions that you're asking, that all of you are asking, and they're all good questions. When they started down the road of considering whether or not to offer this grant to Lee County. Lee County is eligible to receive this grant as a government, as a tax-exempt organization, just like a 501c3 is.
I would like for the agreement to state that.
Right. And then when that money comes back to the county after the lease payments start coming in, the county, as it states in this application, it states how we're going to use that money. Again, Golden Leaf is fine with that. They even made some comments about how they'd like to see that work in the application, how we carry that whole process forward. So, we can ask those questions again, but I'm telling you, Golden Leaf is ready to do this thing. I think Frontier is ready to do this thing, and I'd sure like the commissioner to be ready to do this thing as well.
But you didn't answer the question, though. The thing is we have some restrictive language in there that we didn't see before. And the restrictive language isn't in our agreement that we're signing. I mean, it's in our agreement that we're signing, but we don't know what's, in your full package. And Golden Leaf hasn't told us that we could use it for anything else. You see what we're talking about?
Yeah, but they have told us that we can use it
Wait a
for the
minute.
purpose.
Telling us doesn't make a contract.
I don't think there's any harm in amending the motion and just to say that, we want clarification on that particular item.
Right, yeah.
We'll get that clarification, and then you've given the chairman the authority to sign the contract.
There you go.
And
I'm going to sign it, not you. I want clarification.
I don't know, is my name on that thing? I didn't even look at the signature page. I just assumed it would be yours.
My problem is, I spent about 8 years as a paralegal, and legal documents are legal documents. And even though you have a document there that says what the grant was, management at Golden Leaf may change. New people come in, and on the very last page, there's some pretty loose terminology about how they can rescind and cancel the grant at any time. And so, we have to depend on this as being what we're going to be held, liable.
Let me rephrase my motion then. Okay.
Well, I think we got an amendment on the floor. If it was actually.
No, it's his motion.
That's my
It's his
motion.
He's got to do it.
Did you make? No.
I'll make a motion that we approve all three documents with the amendment to include the county attorney to review this contract and the document again. And if he finds it okay, we move on.
Well, I was suggesting that that we get some sort of affirmative acknowledgement back from Golden Leaf.
Yeah. The issue, quite frankly, it seems to be, Golden Leaf says you can use the money the way you plan, but if you alter the conditions, they must give approval first. So the person that you said sent the email, I don't remember the name we gave. What is his position? And
He's the attorney for
Okay.
Golden Leaf.
yeah, well, that's at the end of the 5 years. There should be some conditions that they are expecting, and that's where
maybe you should go with what we plan to do and how we plan to do it and get the resolution.
Hopefully it'll be before the,
What, Ms.?
That's not the grant.
No, the grant would be done at that time. That would, then it would become accrued, the money would accrue to us for our future use unencumbered by Golden Leaf. I think the concern, Commissioner Reeves is, and I think the chairman has a good point, that there is, language is ambiguous, that it does appear to say that we'll use it only for, as a 501c3 might use it, and it is a technicality, but it could be a legal problem for us downrange. And I'm not suggesting that I know more about the law than our counselor does, but I think that it wouldn't hurt for us to get an affirmation back from Golden Leaf that truly will meet what we're planning to do, truly will meet the requirements of this language, and that we've got that in writing to supplement this agreement, so that we know that we're dealing above board with them, and that they're not going to drop another shoe on us later.
And let me ask this, and what exactly is the point of clarification that you would be looking for? What do you want them to affirm?
We could cite our concerns about not understanding 6H and paragraph 7, and that we would like to, for them to affirm.
It's the same language.
Right.
Might as well include that one in.
There you go. And then basically say, this is our understanding. We'll sign the agreement, but we want to make sure we understand what we're signing, and we document that, and they acknowledge back what you're planning to do is fine. We will not, we will hold you harmless or whatever the proper legal language is.
Well, we have
My concern is that as Frontier pays us back and we get a fund that we could use for small business development or a revolving loan, I want to make sure we can use it for that this doesn't have to be earmarked for a charitable nonprofit organization. And the way I read and interpreted that, I saw maybe our hands being tied for us not to be able to use those loan payments in the way that we had anticipated being able to make them.
Well, that's a clear question. And do you have any further comment on that, Mr. Hughes?
well, I would say that once they're checking right now to make sure that we're either a 501c3 or that we are a tax exempt organization like the city or the county. Once that's been met, they can give us the money. Okay, as the money comes back in, we're not doling it out to a business or for another purpose. That as a tax exempt organization, the county being a tax exempt organization, as long as we're
not gaining from it.
That's right. Exactly. We're building a revolving loan fund. We continue to build it. We've met the criteria already. So I think about that process a little bit. But Ted, there won't be any problem getting some answers from him.
For the question.
Okay. Question has been called. The amended motion is to approve all three of these agreements: the Golden Leaf Grant Agreement, the equipment lease, and the performance agreement, with the condition that we get clarification on the language in the grant agreement that, as these lease payments come back into us, that we can use it for further economic development. Is that fair?
That's the motion.
And Madam Chairman, and you will, satisfied with that answer, sign and move this document forward. This does not have to come back to us again in a full session.
I think
That is correct.
Okay.
The only way we would bring it back is if they, substantially
We failed.
decided to change the agreement for some reason.
Okay. Motion is on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
We get one of those per meeting. One per meeting.
Hey, now that after an hour into our meeting, we're ready for new business. Next on the agenda is discussion update on the Wilbrook Hotel. Bob Bridwell and David Montgomery.
Actually, that's supposed to be Ken Armstrong. I apologize for that.
Ken?
That was my bad. I was thinking downtown Sanford.
Well, actually, I was prepared to apologize because David said the Farmers Market meeting, so he couldn't attend. But I am glad that Mr. Armstrong is here. What I'd like to do, and then, is to give you the same briefing that I gave City Council last week, and then allow for questions, including an opportunity for Mr. Armstrong to make comments. But also point out that we have 2 members of the Board of County Commissioners who were here when the original agreement on the Bilbrick was done, and they probably have information that I don't have available to me, so you might want to ask them questions at the end as well. So if you'll allow me, I'll make that same briefing that I gave them last week. The Wilrick is a very important facility in our downtown, and I believe all of us understand the importance of this historically and architecturally significant structure to both the city and the county, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Built circa 1925, the Wilrick has served not only as the town's premier residential hotel, but also as the site of major social and political events throughout the years. Its beautiful lobby and ballroom have been the venue for numerous events for over 85 years. As our downtown began experiencing declines during the 1960s and 70s, so did the Wilrick. Eventually, it became office space for local government, including Lee County. I can't confirm the date, but we believe that the county first occupied the Wilrick in 1968. The county used the Wilrick until 1992, along with several other state agencies, probation, parole, juvenile agencies, and volunteer groups like the United Way. The Board of Education also resided in the building. The building had a number of problems and continued to deteriorate, and the county vacated the building in 1992 again. But schools stayed until 1994, when the building inspector condemned the building as being unfit for human habitation. After the Board of Education departed for its current location, it was completely vacant until its reoccupation and rehabilitation in 1998. In the late 1990s, there was a nationwide movement to restore downtowns and historic central business districts as important commercial and cultural centers. This movement also touched Sanford and continues to today. In early 1995, a private development group called Affordable Housing Advisors, LLC, that also had the participation of Mr. Murray Gould of Progress Energy, proposed acquiring and restoring the Wilrick as a housing for the elderly. Our files indicate that organizations, institutions, and agencies throughout Sanford and Lee County offer their total and complete support for this restoration project. The major features of the proposal for acquisition and restoration initially involved the use of historic tax credits and elderly tax credits over an extended period of time. The North Carolina Housing Finance Agency deemed the facility ineligible for elderly credits, and low-income tax credits were applied instead. These credits would be the basis of securing financing and are part of this total package that still applies. The property was purchased in October of 1997 and included the following deeds of trust. First Bank, with an original principal of $1,650,000, was executed in April of 1998. Wachovia Bank, original principal of $2,800,000, executed in December of 1998. Lee County and the City of Sanford, with an original principal, they were equal partners in this, of $500,000, and that was executed in March of 1999, and I believe that was used as gap financing. And the Historic Preservation Foundation of North Carolina and Lee County, with an original principal of $90,000, and that was executed in November of '97. Recipient of the property was to the Wilrick Hotel Apartments LLC, with the intent to create 42 residential housing units. Progress Energy served as the guarantor for the loans. As part of the project, Sanford and Lee County again agreed to subordinate their loan and defer payments of principal and interest on their part of the financing until the project demonstrated positive cash flow, or the end of it in 30 years. This type of public debt deferment has been a customary tool used by local governments to encourage downtown development of properties to make them more attractive to investors. The Lee County and Sanford participation as equity lenders was deemed necessary to make this project work. The alternative for Lee County was to either bring the building back to compliance or demolish the building. Either of these options would likely have exceeded the cost of the loans that were rendered. The city and the county have, again, had an equal stake in preserving, the city had an equal stake in preserving the building, being such an important structure for downtown. Although I'm not certain of all the facts of the Wilrick Hotel Apartments, it was almost immediately in trouble. The debt was not being serviced and bank financing went into default, and since the loans had been declared non-performing and troubled assets, Progress Energy assumed ownership as the guarantor. They also assumed management of the property, which continues until today. Shortly after I arrived, I received a request from City Manager Leonard Barefoot to talk with representatives of Progress Energy, Ms. Hortense Francis. And at that meeting, Ms. Francis updated me on the project, reviewed the financials and the cash flows, and explained her firm's interest in disposing of the property. She indicated that Progress Energy will welcome an offer by the city. I'd like to note at this time that Progress Energy has performed very admirably throughout this project, and having them as a corporate citizen was very important. But after reviewing that proposal, my recommendation to the city was not to get into the housing business. That recommendation was delivered to Mr. Barefoot and to the city council. And that recommendation was based on my opinion the city has little experience organizing, operating subsidized housing, either financially or administratively, and that it was in the best interest of downtown Sanford for the Wilrick to eventually return to market value property. The city manager did ask me to render my assistance all that I could in finding potential investors in the property, and we have been doing so since that point. Over the last several years, we've had several meetings on the Wilrick with Progress Energy and potential investors. Mr. David Montgomery, DSI Executive Director, and I work on several projects, and we have been unsuccessful in that search. We determined one of the major obstacles returning the property for development as a market value property was the low-income tax credits attached to the project. So a few years ago, we met with executives and legal representatives of North Carolina Housing Finance to better understand that aspect of the project, again, the tax credits. The original tax credits were applied for a period of 15 years. Assuming that the clock started ticking in 1997 when the property was first purchased, then those tax credits remain in full effect until the end of 2012. However, there is a provision for extension of those credits for low-income housing. I'm not sure exactly how long, we never got an answer, as a matter of fact, on how long that extension was to apply, but we were advised by Housing Finance that there was some flexibility in that extension if we came up with the right project, and that those 42 units were replaced with new subsidized housing units. We couldn't just take those people and remove them. We had to replace that with new units as well. We took that as a good possibility to make the property available for market rent housing, and again, we searched for developers for that kind of project, and to date have been unsuccessful. In meeting potential investors and developers, another obstacle arose. This was the primary obstacle, and that's the cost of servicing the debt on the project. With the amount of debt, private and public, involved in the project, it became difficult to project a pro forma that demonstrates positive cash flow with market value rents. The most recent financials that I have seen, which were April 30th, 2010, that we have access to, $581,000 for Lee County and Sanford, and $250,000 of that is for Sanford and the rest is for Lee County, and $1,296,552 to Progress Energy. Rents high enough to service that kind of debt, disregarding renovation and maintenance costs, would be difficult in this market. In order to make this project feasible, debt would have to be discounted and/or repayment delayed. Our repeated efforts to attract developers has not been productive, as I've said previously. And so this past summer, we scheduled a final meeting with Ms. Francis at Progress Energy. We were told early in the meeting that they had been having discussions with the Sanford Housing Authority and was expecting an offer. Given that information, we returned and reported on the meeting. Shortly thereafter, we met with the Sanford Housing Authority Executive Director Ken Armstrong and Attorney Bill Wilson. That meeting was both informative and helpful. We understand that the Wilrick was being considered as a project of an independent unit of the Sanford Housing Authority with an interest in providing both market rent and subsidized residential, along with possible commercial and office use. We were encouraged by that meeting and were offered an opportunity to review the potential project. It is my impression that the project is still being pursued by them, but I have not been privy to further details, hence their participation here tonight. We completely understand the intense interest in the Wilrick and what could possibly happen. The Wilrick is a very important project and facility to many people, including our downtown merchants. It continues to be a major contributing structure to our historic district and represents a strategic focus for what is to become downtown Sanford. And with those comments, I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can or defer to others who have additional information. Mr. Reeves?
How about your board? They had the same presentation?
Yes, sir. They got this last Tuesday night.
Do you know what their position was? I haven't read it.
They accepted that as information, Mr. Reeves. They didn't vote or make any decisions stated. I think they're all very interested in making sure that that facility is an important contributing facility for downtown. That's their major interest.
They indicated you had an interest in buying it?
No, sir, no. There's any interest in doing that. None that I've heard. Yes, sir.
You said that there was a sort of an open session to seeking potential investors at some point in time, in the not too distant future, past.
Yes.
Okay. And there were no takers, no other interested parties?
I've met with about 5 potential investors. Only 2 expressed really got down to the nitty-gritty in terms of running their own numbers and trying to make the project work. And both of them declined to make an offer to Progress Energy.
Was Progressive Design, what the company? Progressive Contractors, were they, was there any dialogue with them or
Yes,
any
sir.
expression on their part that they were interested in looking, or did they run numbers? Do you
Yes.
know?
I don't know if they actually ran numbers, but they did look at the project.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because I heard someone connected with them say that they had not had an opportunity to be involved in this process, and I just wanted to have you.
I'm not sure exactly what their statement was, but Progressive has had an opportunity to look at this project and continues to. And this is one of the last things I told council. Outside of the public debt that is owed to the city and county, this is pretty much a private real estate transaction.
Yeah.
And anybody who's interested in making a bid to Progress Energy and or to Sanford and Lee County is certainly capable and willing to do so. There's nothing to preclude them from doing that.
Madam Chair, I would just like to go on the record of saying that I've been trying to follow this closely as well, because I have my heart is in that part of the city, and I love that Wilrick Hotel building structure, and I think that I've spoken at length with Mr. Armstrong and with other interested parties, and I think that what they plan to do, at least in their conceptual stage, is excellent. We've wrung our hands for years about what's going to happen with the Wilrick, and is it going to sustain itself as Section 8 housing or subsidized housing for years and years. And I think everybody I've talked to is in agreement. It's imperative that we have a plan, long range, to transition that back to marketable property, so that and then to have the capacity for other facilities to house the people that would otherwise be in the Wilrick. And I don't know anybody in this community that's got a better capability to do that than Ken Armstrong. The Sanford Housing Authority has got 2 sides to its house. One side is for private development, the other side pretty much public housing. And I don't know anybody that can navigate the complexities of encumbered property as well as he can. And he knows if there's any chance that this hotel is going to be converted back to commercial value, it's going to be through him. Unless somebody some white knight comes riding into Sanford with $1 million in their pocket, ready to pay off the county, the city, and to invest in the facility. So I just encourage you guys to keep it up and to continue to press forward and to let this commission know if there's something we can do to help you.
I'd be interested to hear from Mr. Armstrong a moment, if you would wish to just give us a brief overview. I understand you did at the chamber, and then it was very well received. I'd love to know just a little bit more about your design.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'll just kind of give you an update of where we're at with this. By the way, I'm Ken Armstrong. I'm actually Executive Director of the Housing Authority, as well as CEO of the Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit arm of the Housing Authority. Right now, we have made an offer on the building to Progress Energy. We've went back and forth over the past 3 or 4 months, counteroffer, so we're still kind of in a stalemate with that offer. That's where we stand with Progress Energy. Of course, there is the $500 and some thousand notes with both the county and the city that we would have to. And of course, we don't want it forgiven. We just want it pushed back in some scenario similar to what it is right now, deferred to some point in time, so we could put together a capital fund pot of money per se to fix the property up. Right now, what we're looking at doing is, initially we would get in there and spend some money. If we were able to obtain the building, we would spend anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 initially, inside, outside, just doing the repairs that needs to be done that hadn't been done over the past 2 or 3 years. We would also put in place a new screening process, new policies and procedures to make sure that we got the bad element, per se, out of there, the criminal element, for lack of a better word, out of that area. We would also work with the Sanford Police Department in hopes of putting maybe a place there where the police could come and get their coffee and so forth to kind of deter the criminal element down there. So, that's kind of initially what we would be looking to do. The screening is a big part of it. Screening our residents, make sure we're not dealing with any criminals or any illegal aliens or things of that nature, which may or may not be doing right now, but it doesn't seem like it is. So initially, that would be our game plan. 3 to 5 years, we'd be looking to put a capital improvement plan in place with the money that we could possibly save from pushing these notes back. Maybe 25, 35, realistically, maybe $20,000 a year we could put aside into a capital improvement to fix the units up over about a 5-year plan. We're looking at new kitchens, new baths, new HVAC systems, possibly other upgrades as well. So that's kind of the overview. Some of the ideas and models that we put out there are everything from mixed housing, which would be the top 3 floors being in the upper end, the bottom 3 mixed income. Other ideas out there is possibly a mixed use with offices on the first 2 floors, units on the top 3 floors, things of that nature. And of course, that would be pending the economy. That would be pending the unemployment rate or the employment rate and so forth over the next 5 years. But the key is here being able as a development corporation to put aside a capital improvement program and put aside that money so we can fix these units up. Because right now, as it stands, if we purchased it tomorrow, we would still have to abide by the tax credits that are in place. So we would have the rent restrictions as well as the use restrictions. 3 to 5 years from now, we may be able to go back, and I talked with the downtown people last week on this, we may be able to go back as a group and say, look, North Carolina Housing Finance, this is what we'd like to do with this building. We have a capital fund in place to do these improvements, to retrofit this building. Can you lift these restrictions? That's what we want to do over a 5-year period. And again, it may take 3 years, 5 years, depending on the economy. It may take 7 years, but that's what we want to do. Again, I've talked to Mr. Womack on this, and we want to make that a nice again, per se.
Are you pretty satisfied that this is, as you've described it so far, to Downtown Sanford Inc. and people downtown? There's a little bit of concern. I mean, that doesn't take somebody smart to hear that and see where they're coming from. Is there a good sense of common purpose there now that they would understand that this is something you can't just do overnight, but that this would conceivably save the building, and that there would be a plan put in place that over a period of time would allow that building to function for people, and that the elements, the criminal type or appearances of that type of activity would be absolutely eliminated? Because you see and you hear these kinds of things, and I don't know.
I met with the downtown people for probably a little over 2 hours last week and explained everything and answered every question. So Mr. Womack was attending that meeting, as well as the mayor of Sanford. So I think that we all came away with a scenario that we're with those people. We want to make downtown a vibrant, good place again. We don't my job is to provide housing as well as do something good for the city. I love going downtown myself personally. It's a great place to go, and I want to see it thrive over the next 3, 5, 10 years. So I think we came away with a good scenario that, if you open the door 2 weeks from now, if we happen to purchase that building and you've seen us over there doing $50,000, $75,000 worth of work and sprucing it up and putting lights and now we're screening, now we're following our policies and procedures. There's a presence over there at all time, which, now I think, 4 or 5 hours a day. Just those things alone that we can do initially, and I can guarantee we'll do those, are gonna make a change to downtown. If we work with the police department, I've worked with the police department on other issues before, and, I think they'll be, the chief will work with me on this to try to, if we do our job and follow our policies and procedures and our screening processes, we can get to a point where we can make that a vibrant, a good building initially. And then, down the road, I'm with the downtown people. We want to make some changes there. We want to, possibly put some businesses in there, possibly put some mixed income in there. I mean, those top 3 floors, you put some, some granite in the bathrooms and kitchens and, spruce it up a little bit for, a small amount. You can make those very nice pieces of property or even condos in the future. But so yes, I think they came away with a little bit more positive, and they understood where we're coming from. We're not just somebody trying to come in and make a profit. That's not what the Sanford Housing Affordable Development Corporation is about. We're about doing something good for the city and the county. So.
And I would add that I don't think that their plan, anywhere in their plan, are they looking to sustain it as subsidized housing in perpetuity. And I think that's the key. That's what a lot of folks are concerned about, is that anchor downtown being subsidized housing forever and ever. And I think Ken's got a plan to transition it away from that, and probably got the best plan I've heard yet.
John, is this property now is not in our tax base, right?
It is.
It
It's
is?
a tax-paying piece of property. That's why we haven't foreclosed on the property. They're paying the taxes. They're not paying the note, but as long as they're paying the taxes, we didn't want to own it.
Another advantage may be that this will increase the taxable value on that property?
Through the corporation, is that taxable?
It would be a nonprofit, yes, through the development corporation, yes. There could possibly be a payment in lieu of taxes, similar to what the housing authority has in place. So yes, I think what they have in place is actually a lower amount per se at this point in time.
Yeah, they have some type of credit, so it's a reduced amount.
Mr. Reeves, did you?
Yes, I was gonna fess up. I was on the board when Mary Gold came through here. I know what his name is, but if I'd paid closer attention, I would have seen that airline ticket in his coat. But have you had any discussion with the manager about this process? Because what I'm interested in knowing is how the city and the county can support your plan. And either one of you can share that with me.
Well, I have had conversation with the city and the county on this. Basically, somehow, if Progress Energy does accept our current bid, we would have to get the county and city both on board on this to again defer this $500-something thousand to somewhere in time, whether it be 5 or 10 years down the road, and then base it on profit. The repayment agreement. So again, we wouldn't be asking for forgiveness of this loan, but to put, and the only reason we would be doing that is to put together this capital improvement. Every dime that we saved on this potential deference would go straight into a capital improvement program. So we could put aside that $15,000-$20,000 to again retrofit this building, whether it be for mixed income or mixed use in the property. Yes, I have had, and with the mayor as well, to attempt to, no, we haven't gone officially before that board yet, but as soon as we get the process of accepting this offer contingent on, Bill, if you would just speak quickly on the contingents of the offer we put together, just so the commissioners will understand that.
Yes, I'm Bill Wilson. I've been working with the Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing Group for years. We have made an offer, sort of difficult to, it's not in this building though, because nobody else has an interest. We found that out. Yeah, we're on television now, and there's nobody else that can. Mr. Womack was there the other day. We met for 2 hours with the downtown folk, and they were a concerned group of people, and we appreciate that. But we made it very clear that we mean business. We both have lived here and invested in this community, and we want to see downtown thrive. And that building is going down every day. It's not being taken care of right now, and I'm not faulting anybody, but it's just not. at the present time. Nobody's making an investment. And any building that size with no maintenance and repairs is soon going to be in a state of total disrepair. And that's what Ken is trying to do before it happens. Our offer is out there. We need your help to just defer your monies that are owed to you. I think the manager made a great comment there that you all certainly don't want to foreclose on the business that's paying taxes. That's not good business, and but you could. But we need your help going forward, because we can't go in and make a capital plan without some help down the road. I would say this, I think the plan was, and Mr. Reed's been around long enough, he might remember, I don't think anybody expected any real repayment the way it was structured. If you look at the way it was structured, you didn't, I'm sure you all did, but when Mr. Murray Gold, as you called him, got out of the picture, the project at that point was in a state of, it's been going downhill ever since, and as good Progress Energy was there, could step in and do what they needed to do. But we are serious. We plan to be partners who will make it work, and I think this is the best possible alternative. If there's anybody else, and Ken has said this more than one time, he'll step aside. If there's somebody who wants to come in and take that, he's taking some risk here. And he's going to be using his own affordable group's money to do this. That $50,000 to $75,000 he's talking about, that's real dollars that he's going to invest right up front. And he's not asking from anything from the city or the county to do that. And with that kind of investment, you could see a real change downtown real quick, along with his people who will also screen all the applicants and ensure that we're not putting people who are going to be any kind of troublemakers down there. There's no guarantee, you don't know. Certainly they have a national screening process. And it helps, because when people move from other places, they come here, whatever they've done in those places is going to follow them with their process. So rest assured that we want to work with the city and the county. And if you'll just consider this, there's no need of going into all the particulars at this point, because we're still trying to put together how we're going to structure it. It's not going to be easy. We got emails today from the lawyers who represent us, and these are the tax credit lawyers. And certainly there are restrictions on this property. We know going in, we can't just start doing what we want to do. We got to follow the restrictions that are in place. But we're going to be good partners. All we ask is your support, and to defer your loans, and we'll structure something with your attorneys that hopefully will be something that will work for all of us.
Madam Chair, I think that it was presented today for us to consider as an informational briefing, and I would move that we accept the informational briefing, commend the Housing Authority and its attorney for the great work they've done up to this point, and empower the county manager to negotiate in good faith with the Sanford Housing Authority on behalf of the commission to work out a reasonably prudent plan that will empower them to go forward and protect the interests of our taxpayers.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
I just want to make one other point there from the housing side of this. Those vouchers in there right now are portable anywhere in the country, so there'll be nobody displaced or anything in the near future. So rest assured, we're not trying to put somebody on the street or take away a voucher. They can go anywhere in the United States with these portable vouchers. So.
How many apartments are in there currently?
41 right now.
Thank you.
Thank you
all for the
Thank you.
Great work. I want to ask Mr. Bridwell.
Thank you all.
I can get a copy of the information he presented to us.
Mr. Bridwell?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, application for LCID landfill. Mr. Cherry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chairman, members of the board. Call LLC, doing business as Central Stump Dump, has submitted an application for a franchise to develop, use, and operate a land clearing and inter-debris landfill in Lee County. If approved, said franchise would cover a 13-acre parcel located at the end of Goldsboro Avenue, where the applicants would be permitted to operate an LCID landfill covering a 1.9-acre section of said parcel with an estimated life of approximately 10 years. The waste that they would accept at this landfill, the LCID landfill, would be uncontaminated soil, stumps, trees, limbs, brush, grass and other naturally occurring vegetative material, concrete and concrete block, brick, gravel and rock, unpainted, untreated wood waste. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I had one question. Who pays for the extension of the road where it was, yeah, Goldsboro Avenue? Who, is the city responsible for doing that, or?
This is Chuck Walker. He is representing Call LLC.
Mr. Walker?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Charles Walker. I'm with Entitlement Preservation Group from Raleigh, North Carolina. The extension of Goldston Avenue, or Goldsboro Avenue, is going to be paid for by the applicant.
Okay.
And it is going to be from its existing termination point just past the apartment complex to the leading gate of the LCID. Is going to be done to commercial road standards.
My colleagues have any further questions?
Yeah, who's going to monitor the materials that are going into there?
The LCID will have staff members that are there all the time. If there's the landfill will never be unmanned. It is at the gate. So we'll have 2 part-time employees that will start, and then as if the workload demands it, then there will be some more employees added. But those employees aren't charged with inspecting every truckload before it gets into the storage facility, and has the right to turn anyone down, turn any truck down if there's any material in there that is deemed that shouldn't be there.
And my office will make periodic inspection of the landfill.
The other question is how are you going to keep dust from affecting the surrounding houses?
Well, if you you probably have this site plan in your packet.
Yes.
You'll see this, the areas that are listed in green, that is a 50-foot wide buffer. It's a natural buffer that will be retained. So you'll see that the clearing limits don't get anywhere near the 50-foot, and then the storage facility, the 1.98 acres, is actually that part of the facility. There is going to be a road, erosion control devices around the perimeter that are going to stop the dust from going off into the houses. There is the apartment complex is here, the lift station is down here, so there are no units at this end. There's a preliminary approved subdivision plan that another member of the corporation has for sale, and adjoining that is another 18 acres of currently vacant property that is also owned by one of the members, one of the applicants. So they have a vested interest in keeping dust down. So we do not perceive it to be getting off the property.
So stumps and limbs and things like that, what do you plan to do with them? You're going to burn them, you're going to chip them up, or how are you just going to put them in there? And
they're going to be ground.
They're going to be ground, okay.
Get you some mulch there, Charles.
Okay.
That's right.
Very good. So has there been a public hearing on this yet?
Not before this one, no, sir.
We have to.
Do we do it or the city does it?
It's not required.
It's not required because of the size of this facility.
If you wish one, that's
I do have a question. How long do you anticipate this thing being open before it would have enough fill that it would close?
10 years.
10 years, wow. And by that time, the planned site development adjacent to that would be completed?
We would anticipate
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Please understand, the franchise agreement that you're looking at to grant is for the entire 13 acres. The 1.9 acres is what we consider phase 1 of this project. There is also the ability to expand this under a separate permit to go to about 6 acres of storage facility. Now, to do that, that requires a higher level of design, a higher level of preservation that is dictated by the state of North Carolina. Our Phase 1 plans adhere to that higher regulation with the idea that someday we may expand this given the demands of the county on this property. So we're doing 1.98 now over the entire 13 acres is where the franchise agreement is being done. But if we do expand the property, then that's going to have to come back under a separate issue. But we wanted the first phase to be the higher design scheme set by the state of North Carolina, so there would be no issues if in fact we did the expansion plan.
I guess the question that I had though about, public hearing is you're gonna have truck traffic running in and out of there that you don't have there now.
That is correct. The truck traffic that's going to run down to the site, down in this area, that's where the gate is going to be.
That's
But past
Goldsboro?
Yes,
After-
but past the apartment complex, there is no other land that fronts on this property. So, yes, there will be more truck traffic from the apartment complex to Bragg, but this will be the sole traffic generator at that end of the project. We anticipate the current anticipation was 3 to 4 trucks a day.
What's the current zoning on this?
R6.
Is it gonna have to have conditional rezoning, or that's enough? And is this property currently in our tax base? I don't know anything about landfills. Are landfills
Yeah.
taxable?
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And that would
Chair.
be classified as a improvement to the property.
Madam Chair, I have a motion. Let's approve the first reading of this application for the franchise as presented.
Okay. Motion has been made to approve the first reading of the application for this franchise as presented. Any further discussion?
What would be your hours of operation?
Right now, the projected hours of operation are from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. But if there are some concerns, and we've offered this to the county concerns, if there are complaints that are given that we need to manipulate those hours, we're willing to do that. Left to our own devices, we're looking at 7 to 6, 6 days a week.
I believe if they expand the facility, they've got to come back again.
We do. That's
It's a
correct.
modification of the permit.
So what is
And
our
the franchise.
process? Do we have to have 2 readings of this application, and then we have a public hearing?
We do not have to have a public hearing unless the board requires it.
Do you have to go before the city?
We have gotten site plan approval from the city pending this agreement. The city and county staff have both reviewed the site plan as it stands right now, and we already have state approval.
It's in the
Which is in the
ABCJ,
packet.
but it's under our jurisdiction.
Are you gonna post, or have there been any sign posted over in that small subdivision apartment complex about the landfill?
No, sir.
So they could actually wake up one morning and
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant advertising, as like for people to drive by to know that was there. You mean as a,
I would
Kind of like posting a zoning
notice
change.
that.
That's a public hearing, yeah.
well, at this point, we have not gone to a public hearing, and we're not required to do a rezoning hearing, so we're following both the city and the county's jurisdictional
You're
rules.
saying there's a sign that says future site of a,
Yes, sir. I think there ought to be some level of communication and information for people living back in that section.
Well, absolutely, and of course, the newspaper can pick up on that, and we have between now and the next reading of this for people to comment if they wish informally.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
so we're,
I'm not so sure that it's not a bad idea. I mean, we want to try to engage the public wherever we can. The bad idea, we got to do a second reading. Why not schedule a second reading with a public hearing? It might last 30 seconds, and do it in conjunction, and then we've satisfied the opportunity for people to sound off.
I'm okay with that, but I think the most important part would be to put a sign up out where these people live. If I lived there and woke up one morning and you guys have approved the landfill and I had no prior knowledge, newspaper's wonderful, but not everybody takes it. So,
when you say put the sign where, at the entrance road where it comes off of Goldsboro Avenue?
certainly, I mean, there's several houses back there and an apartment complex.
Right, yeah, but I've done that
We
paving.
we could do that. I just wanted the board to understand that we don't have any frontage on Bragg, so it would not be anywhere near that major intersection. It would be down there about where the road stops now.
Well, Bragg is a busy thoroughfare on a regular basis.
Yes,
I
sir.
understand what you're saying, What I'm saying is that there are families back in there.
Yes, sir.
You know, I know where your gate is, I know where your property is. I'm just saying that there are families back there that deserve the communication of we're gonna potentially put a landfill here.
Any further discussion? Okay,
Is the motion going to require the public hearing?
well,
He would have to amend his motion.
To include the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
So amended.
okay. Motion has been made to approve the first reading of the franchise application and with the requirement that at the second and final reading, we also include a public hearing. Is that the motion? Okay.
Sure.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, consider insurance broker for county benefits. Joyce McGehee.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. On January 19th, the county issued an RFQ with the due date of 2/9/2011 for the purpose of requesting qualifications for businesses to solicit the county to be our brokerage service. A little bit of history is on page 71 of your packet. We felt it was time to solicit proposals for brokerage services related to our employee benefits, insurance, and medical benefits products. Our current broker, Mark III, had been with the county for approximately 5 years. And so we felt that it was time to go out and see what else is in the marketplace. So we did that, and we received 11 people responded to the RFQ. And of those 11 people, we interviewed 7 of the 11. The people that we interviewed was BS Services and Design, Hill, Chesson and Woody, JRW Associates, Mark III Brokerage, Banking Port Insurance, Wells Fargo of Charlotte, and Pinnacle Benefit Resources here in Sanford. We had a committee of Mr. Crumpton, Lisa Mentor, our Finance Director, Assistant County Manager, Cantina Lucas from Human Resources, and Brenda Potts, our DSS Director, and myself. We reviewed the proposals and went through the proposals and looked at them. Each person came in. We gave them an hour, but usually it took about 2 hours. We talked to them, and they presented their product, their service, and what they could do for the county. And at the end, we chose 2 companies to come back and do another presentation. There was a software package that was being proposed that was just really, we had not known about it. It was really too good to be true. And it would take away a lot of work out of human resources in the process that we have to do now. So they met, they gave us a presentation, and it was just really a good thing for our employees as well as for the human resources staff. And after careful consideration and much discussion, the committee would like to recommend that Mark III Brokerage be retained as the benefit broker for Lee County government. And the reason being was the competitive pricing, the leverage in the marketplace, the service that we have received in the past, and the staff. And we would be receiving enhanced services without increasing our costs to the county. In fact, our costs will go down because of the commission payments. And his brokerage fee for the medical plan was 1%, which is $18,600. Term life would be net of commissions. The dental, his 5% commissions would be $6,700. And his voluntary products, what's enrolled now would be $11,400, which would be a total of $36,700 that would be paid to the broker. But that would not be money that would come out of the county's balance of the funds. That would be really basically commissions. And if you'll see, there's things listed that he did offer in the process, which would be the benefits website. He would produce the printing and employee benefit booklets, benefit statements for all employees, and they would assist in the enrollment process as much as we need. We would have online enrollment, open enrollment, and also we have people would come in and enroll employees. And we felt that this is our recommendation, and we did not find anything wrong in the references that we did regarding the services, integrity, and knowledge, and the value for the money that we were getting. And again, we would appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Joyce?
Yes, sir.
You said the county doesn't pay any of the commissions or fees. Who pays for that? Does
It
come
comes out of the health benefits, the commissions for the voluntary products and the dental. The commissions are paid by those insurance companies.
Oh, okay.
The people that provide those benefits.
All right.
They pay the commissions to the broker directly. They don't come through us.
And this is for 5 years.
It can be up to 5 years. He did say that he would not ask for an increase in his charges for the next 5 years. He would hold his costs for 5 years.
Move to approve Mark 3.
A motion has been made to approve the recommendation to renew with Mark III Brokerage. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity. Are our health plans comparable to the school system?
The school system is on the state health plan, and I believe our health plan is better than their health plan because of the things they're tying to that now. They're trying to tie weight to the to the state health plan now and some other things, and I think ours is better than what they have with the state at this time.
I'm glad to hear that. Actually, where I was going with it was to find out if we had a possibility of merging the two and getting one better deal, but we don't.
No, sir.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving Mark III Brokerage, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion
Thank you.
carries. And Mr. Crumpton, you're next on the agenda with revised policy for Commissioner Board appointments.
Yes, ma'am. On page 76 is the agenda abstract, and then starting on page 77 is the amended policy. I just tried to make it simple. On page 78, wanted to make basically the commissioners exempt from the policy so they could serve on more than 2 boards. And so that item F does the exemption. But I also wanted to make sure that, we've had some issues in the past where, commissioners have been appointed, have not sought re-election or been re-elected, and, those appointments should run with, serving on the board. So I took the opportunity there to add the sentence that when their elected term expires, the exemption expires as well. So, they would have to leave the other board, if they were on other boards, they could stay on 2 as the board decided, but they couldn't serve on multiple boards once they went back to being part of the citizen. And then,
Let me ask you a question. Once their elected term expired, if they're on statutory boards, does that negate that?
there are certain boards where statutorily that would, they would have to go off or would go on until their appointed period would end. So it just depends on the board. Certain boards have different statutory requirements.
In other words, they may not have to be. They don't automatically come off depending on what kind of appointment they receive.
And then item G was an item that was discussed about board appointments, making sure that they pay their taxes. And instead of just putting in there they couldn't serve, I felt that it would be more prudent to say, we would have the clerk, if we noticed that they had not paid their taxes, to notify them and give them the opportunity to pay it. So, and then keep their application in place. So,
John, I have one concern.
Yes, sir.
In item D, it's been brought to my attention on the nursing home advisory board, on this 3-year thing. That board, the people on there have to get training. And if you just automatically, either we got to plan further ahead to, to replace those folks, or leave in consideration that, they went through the process and their own expense to get this training. I'm not too sure that we may need to make some exception there, because that created a lot of problem where we almost lost all of our board members here on the last go around of replacing them. And I don't know which is the best way to go, whether to notify them early so that they can get people trained earlier that are potential candidates, Or maybe that leave that board alone?
Within item D, we tried to give that, we didn't name that board, per se, but we tried to give the Board of Commissioners the opportunity to allow individuals to continue, and that could be one of the reasons is because of the
Yes.
training, so.
We
You
could
could
do
take
that,
up
that
on a
would certainly help that
case-by-case
board
basis.
out. They go out and they actually get people involved with being on that board and see to it that they get trained and it's a very active board. So I don't know if we can change the language
Well,
somehow.
I think that covers it. I was thinking about the same thing. It says, if we are unable to attract applicants, or if it's determined that an individual's continued contributions is needed to maintain the effectiveness of a board, commission, committee, the board may waive the policy, which seems fair and straightforward enough. That requires us to take some action to discuss something. But I would not lose the opportunity to say and remind the commission that several years ago, we talked about setting term limits, which is the counter argument, so that we would encourage new people to step up and participate in committees and commissions, and to avoid the possibility of sort of a dynasty setting up, which, worst case, that can happen sometimes where someone really sort of rules and others just let that go on. And the question would be, is that a good thing, or is it healthy to do that? So that's the reason we determined that we wanted to have these 2-3-year terms. But I think because that's going to come up again, that question about, do you have an able person, applicant to substitute or to replace, and sometimes we will not. And so you really do come to that bump. And I think that pretty well covers it, if I might suggest.
Ms. Lee has her hand up behind you.
The training that the Restaurant and Nursing Home Advisory Board has to go through is offered through Triangle J.
Yes.
Triangle J refuses to come to Lee County and do that training. They require the people serving on this board to go to the Research Triangle part. A lot of these citizens are older adults that do not feel comfortable in driving on Highway 40 and trying to find the Triangle J building. I have talked with Triangle J on numerous occasions and even offered to schedule a meeting room here in our building for them to do the training locally, and they still refuse to do it. That's part of it, one of the problems.
Is it type of training where you can't use webinar interactive stuff, or does it have to be instructor led?
I don't
Find
know,
that out.
but they just will not come here.
Yeah.
What was the possibility? I didn't read it.
Webinar.
I asked if it was possible to do web-based training, if it was webinar, whether it needed to be instructor led.
Or either see if community college can provide the training.
That's a thought.
Yeah, see if they can do that.
I'll follow up on that one.
And if not, whatever the cost is to get them over there, we'll take it out of the money that we give Triangle J.
I have a question, Madam Chair, on paragraph G, where you talk about the citizens not paid their taxes. The clerk will notify the citizen the outstanding balance and allow the citizen to bring the tax liability current. What about once the citizen's on the board? Somehow they need to keep them current once they're on the board. If they're late, it may be a habit. You know what I'm saying? So if they're on the board, they need to be current with their taxes too.
We can check them, when,
I think that
annual
needs to be-
basis, we can give the list to Dwayne.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know, we better be careful with the language there, because if somebody had a slight oversight and became one day overdue on their taxes.
So we give them time.
There you go.
I'm saying.
An annual check maybe.
All right, just an annual check, but we need to make that part of the paragraph, I think.
Yeah. We may want to make the annual check about February, make sure they don't end up on the newspaper list.
There you go. There you go.
Plenty of time to conform, but I think that needs to be part of it.
But I think we can work that out probably after January 6th.
I had a couple of other points that I wanted to bring up. Gaynell, would we ask these boards to report any absences whereby it says the chairman will notify the commissioners of any members whose absences exceed 25% of regular meetings. I wonder if we could not, I don't know that we need to write this in, but take that request to them rather than to take the chance that they may or may not report that to us, because I think it's very important that people who serve do indeed serve, and not, some people never show from time to time. Is that something that's, you could work with us on that?
That is sent to each board each year, and it's up to the chairman of the board to let us notify if they have citizens that do not attend meetings.
You know, if you don't know why people are not attending, I don't know that you ought to stick your nose in it. I really think that it's difficult enough to get people to volunteer for these various boards. And while I don't disagree that, yeah, if you get assigned to a board, you ought to go, I don't know that that's should be this board's main concern, or one of our main, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm just thinking that there may be on some boards that people really wish to get on. There may be a person who wants to get on there for reasons of ego or what have you, and they may not attend, and that would deny somebody who's really eager and wanting to work. So I don't want to make it an issue, but I think it's something that we ought to look at and think about in maybe not an active, but certainly a passive way, because we want people who step up to serve and, or if they can't, to let us know and to allow someone else to take their place. I have one other point that I would like to get y'all's thoughts about, and this has, I think, been the case for a while. I believe that there is the possibility, and Mr. Hoyle guide me on this too, that where commissioners are on commissions or bodies, boards, and we have active votes, it seems to me like that where that maybe there's a conflict of interest. Let me say that a little better. If I'm sitting on a board that is talking about their budget, and I have a vote on that board, and then I have a vote on this board, that's 2 votes for me. And I wonder if that is in the best interest of the independence of that separate board. In other words, is this the way it should be? Should a commissioner be an ex officio, and as opposed to a voting member on any board that submits its budget to this board on an annual basis? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, just saying ex officio doesn't prohibit him from voting.
That's right. It does not? Does anybody have any problem with that other than myself? And I've been a part of that, so I'm not.
I would hasten to point out that is every board we sit on. What you're basically saying, we'd have to do it uniformly, which means that no commissioner would vote on any board or commission that they serve on other than this board.
Well,
that's essentially what you're saying.
It's the budget double count that I just wondered about. Somehow, if everybody's happy with that, I'm not going to make an issue of it, but you know, a technician, legality, I wonder if it's a practice that is widely maintained for commissioners or county or city council members to sit on boards who vote both on that appointed board and also at the time their budget comes forward. Is there any conflict there?
Let me add a little bit here. You'll remember that I think this discussion all came about because I introduced it as a concern at our retreat. When we had our retreat, I brought this up that I was uncomfortable with it. But I will tell you that there are entities like the Sand Hills Mental Health Board, where it's an LEA, where they're required to have commissioners from each of the counties, and they are required to pass budgets. Social Services Board I'm on, and Ms. Potts presented her budget this week. And I made the disclaimer that as a member of that board, I would approve the budget that she presented to that board, but I said when I'm sitting as a county commissioner, I have not seen our county budget yet. I can't guarantee that I will vote for this budget when I'm sitting on, the revenue side of it. So I try to, make it very clear that although as a member of that board, I'm presenting the budget to come before the county, when I'm sitting here, my position may be different when I have other facts in front of me.
I would like to offer one, oh, go ahead, Doc.
I think the thing is, doesn't matter which board you're serving on, you might vote for that budget, but it comes here, you got 7 different individuals
Right.
that are gonna vote on it, so they may vote it down.
I would also like to add that we all have an inherent conflict of interest when we are also taxpayers and we're sitting on a board. So, to make that logical connection, which I understand you're making, seems to make sense on the face, but at the same time, we have independent fiduciary responsibilities to the board and to this Board of Commissioners, as the chairwoman have said. And in addition, I'd also argue that I think that the consequences of removing the authority to vote on the board that might be coming to this board for money are such that there might be a reticence on that part of that individual to want to be as active or engaged if he's not a voting board member. There also is a tendency, I've noticed in human interaction, that if you've got a non-voting participant in a committee or a board, that there's a tendency to not give them as much credence or as much emphasis as the voting members are. They tend to listen to the voting members more often than they don't. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but I would think that there could be some adverse consequences of removing the voting authority from one of our appointed members to those boards. I think people, if you want them to be diligent and active and to be listened to in those boards, then I think letting them retain a voting right is important.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Doc, did you want to
The
have?
only thing, I just want that line added, I was talking about, about the tax.
That the taxes need to be
Correct.
So can you fix that?
Yes.
So is that a,
That's for the members on the board. We'll check the.
Appointed boards, though.
Appointed.
Yeah.
We check you off.
You do.
We wouldn't want you to have a public embarrassment.
Actually-
Dwayne does check.
actually, number F, there is a subject-verb disagreement that needs to be corrected too. I think county commissioners who are currently serving elected terms are exempt, so let's make that a little change. So I guess that's a form of a motion, Doug? Okay. Robert, are you comfortable with that motion, or do you want him to rephrase it, or?
No, I didn't know if he was referring to this board or just the other
To
boards.
the appointed boards.
Appointed boards, and I'm just gonna let the county manager, he can reword it, and I think he can do it the way they do.
Well, I would hope, this is the extent of it, but I would hope that if Dwayne saw city and town officials that had the same situation unpaid, that you would refer this to the manager and let the manager talk to their manager. Sometimes anybody can overlook something. I remember having in 1991 a $7 bill on a piece of property that I don't own, and I was trying to be compromised on the vote. And I said, if you want to print it for $7, do that. It's not that I can't pay you $7. I had no knowledge. And no reason to think I owed you because I don't own the land. So things can happen, and we're in positions that we can help eliminate that. We gotta do that. So I would ask you to consider doing that.
And that's the reason I said, Robert, let's give them plenty of time.
Yeah.
Let's don't.
Okay, motion is on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. John, you've got the next one.
Yes, ma'am. Also at the March 7th meeting, I was asked to review how commissioner board appointments were made and report back to the board. So I did. I did attach Rule 31, which Mr. Hull brought up at the last meeting. And then we also went back and checked back to when this rules of procedure was put in place, which was 2001. This procedure has not been used for the appointments of commissioners to boards, starting with Chairman Hinks The accepted procedure for commissioner appointments to boards and commissions has been to allow the chairman to make the appointments and announce them at the first meeting in December or January when there's an election. So essentially, the chairman has made the appointment, and if there are no objections, the appointments became part of the minutes without a vote of the board. And since I've been manager, that's the way it's occurred for all three chairmen I've served under, and it's just been acted as if it was part of the chairman's responsibility to make those appointments. So it would really be up to the commissioners as to whether they wanted to apply Rule 31 to themselves.
Well, let me make this comment. For the most part, the way the manager explained it was more for show and tell to eliminate a lot of things. I don't recall that being the process. The process is the new chair will check with each individual to ask when and what you want to serve on, even to the extent that they say, well, I need you on more, then fine. You may add that person, but that doesn't make them obligated just because the chair. The chair has a specific duty, but it's an encroachment if you start telling me what I am going to serve on when you don't really have that authority. You can put my name down, but you don't have the authority to do that. I think that practice or the principle ought to be the way it has. We're all adults, and we've all been elected. We're not appointed people, we're elected people. And for that reason, we ought to be able to reach a compromise, a simple and fair compromise about what we're willing to do.
Danielle, how many boards are there? First of all, there's too many boards for everybody just to have two. Okay, now, 27 or more? So there's no way that we could limit ourselves to two. And I did try to, communicate with everybody at the very beginning, saying, what your choices would. So and there are a couple that, several ones you wanted to be on, and I did make executive decisions there. If I had my way, we wouldn't have to serve on any boards, to be honest with you. I have put myself on more because I couldn't get any takers.
Well, I tell you, I think it's a great thing that we serve on the boards, because I think it gives us a reach back into the county, and it gives us oversight in areas where it's desperately needed. And now we may not always be welcome on some of the boards we sit on. I can live living testimony to that, but yeah, to include this one. But I will say that it's a thrill and an enjoyment to serve on those boards and interact with citizens in that function.
So John, do we need a motion just to continue this, or to just say we're not going to apply Rule 31 to?
I give it to you for information. If you don't do anything, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, I think that's fine. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Next on the list, Lisa, monthly financial
Madam Chair, we might be up here a while, so we might want to take a quick break so that folks can.
I always forget to do that, so you guys weren't elbowing me. Okay, 5 minutes good? 10, 5-minute recess?
Danielle's trying to run us off. Temperature set up to 80 degrees.
I'm ready to You plan to go out here and add on to this building, I said, no, you can't do that. Because you have to make a plan. I said, no, that's not what purpose. And you usually, at the end of, I think it says right at the end, the terms that must be met.
Thank you, Tom.
Conditions on how you can use that money. And I was surprised that we hadn't covered it.
But they stopped paying us right away, that 16,000 a month or whatever, for 13, whatever it is. So does that mean we cannot use that money for further economic development for 5 years until this thing is done? Or do we have to submit something to them every time we have maybe something we want to use this on?
That's what we need clarification on.
Right.
Is it the right way?
Right.
They're all happy with us.
The county does.
There are conditions for local governments in 501, but the other side of it is they're also saying you can't take the money we got so that the frontier gets it. You can get it.
Well, I say it gets back a little to what I've heard discussed. Information we need from the EDC board on them sending.
You should go on without
Information to the county.
Gotta wait on the chairman. She got calls back to order.
And then the county's got to submit it to the.
Just remember, Lisa, we'll be here as long as you.
I would say it probably would have been strict. We used to deal with a lot of federal.
Just remember, John comes after.
Signs your life.
I guess we're all back. Lisa?
I am not between you and home. That is John.
Are you turned on?
That sounds like I.
No, I meant
Well, we're not on to that
okay,
yet.
we're
That's
not doing
your,
that.
that's
Okay.
yours.
Oh, that's mine?
But I'm gonna operate it for you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You ready? Okay.
Monthly financials.
Okay, before you have before you the monthly financial report through February 28, 2011. As you can see there, our property tax collections are right in the same ballpark where we were for the same time frame last year. So that's a good showing. That does include the YF Discovery though. So just to point that out to you. Remember that we still run 3 months behind on sales taxes, so that is why the sales tax numbers look relatively low on this report. As far as expenditures go, the target was 66.67%. As you can see, we still have the same departments pretty much, with the only ones running over, those being the governing body, strategic services, elections, and the sheriff's department. Any questions on that report?
You're talking about the page 82?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have just one question, and maybe it's nothing, but it struck me when I looked at I did my math on, if you look at the end of the first section under general fund, total revenues, looking at the 0910 budget through 22810, and then looking at the 1011 budget through 22811. And when I do the math, I calculate roughly $10 million and $10,000 short on the first calculation, which would be the total revenues.
Okay.
And year to date, there was 10 million. We were just shy 10 million and 10,000 of what we were going to collect for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Then I look at this year and I see 59,353 and 46,011 to date. That's a difference of 13,340,000. What that says to me is that even though things look pretty good in the ad valorem tax area, that we may have some issues. Is that sales tax? What is
Yes,
that?
sir.
Where's that shortage coming from?
A lot of it is coming from restricted intergovernmental,
Okay.
and those are your federal and state. A lot of your federal and state grants.
Are they
and
paying later this year?
You're having a delay on some of the payments, and
Okay.
you've also had some reductions. But however, if there are reductions, in most cases there are also corresponding reductions on the expenditure side.
Okay.
We do know that there was a grant budgeted that's used to help run the Hillcrest Youth Home and the Youth Services Department that we did not get this year.
Okay, well, we
we
need-
lost part of that funding this year.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because that's something we need to make sure is agended for a future meeting to talk about options for figuring out how to restore funding for that. So you think that $3,300,000 shortage or difference year to date from last year to this year is mostly in intergovernmental transfers that should occur before the end of this fiscal year.
It either will occur
Or we'll take the
we'll have expenditures
reductions.
to help offset it and set for situations where we have lost grant revenue,
Okay.
that the programs have got to be, are being extended.
If there's anything we can do as commissioners, either through resolutions or through phone calls, anything we can do to remedy that or to speed up that process so our cash flows aren't affected, please let us know.
Okay. The other area that we are running behind on is investment earnings.
Okay?
And I only wish there was something we could do about
Yeah,
that.
it's beyond our control.
So that's another major area. So just looking down very quickly through those expenditures, those are the two other major areas that I see that we're well below where we were this time frame last year. Okay.
So what is all included under miscellaneous,
Hold on one second and I can tell you.
under general fund?
Try to rattle it off. It is things such as our ABC shared net revenues that we get from the ABC board, our vending revenues that we make off this sheriff's department where we do vending in the jail. But there's also a corresponding expenditure to that doesn't net out to zero. We do make some money on the vending at the jail. It is other things such as some outside agencies that give us money for services, Progress Energy being one for the money for emergency management that helps offset our involvement with the Sharon Harris plant. I'm looking down some other small grants go through there.
That's good. I don't need to do the whole list, I just was wondering what kinds of things that were there. Thanks.
Any other questions on that report before I move into sales tax? Okay. You also have the sales tax numbers finally through December, starting on page 85. And as you can see, we are not well above, but we are above 50% of our budget at this point, which is very good. And if you look at page 86 and look at the numbers for December, you will see that our sales taxes are the best they have been since 2 years ago for the same time period. So that was a very positive sign. That's on Article 39 and on the combination of Articles 40 and 42. So that was a very, very positive sign. Whether or not it will continue, we will have to wait and see. Obviously, with gas prices going up, people are going to have to make some tough decisions on what they buy and what they don't. So food and gas will probably be their highest priorities, and so some of the shopping may slow down. But we are tickled to see where we are. We are in better shape this time frame than what we were last year in the same time frame, as you can see historically there.
I have one more comment in the sales tax area that I would like to emphasize, because I've heard some public remarks recently that said, well, our numbers are looking real good on the sales tax and on the property tax collections. And I think some of that is really, some of the ad valorem tax side, I think is really, it's got momentum just because it's property taxes. And in the sales tax, that is good to see that, but that does not mean that things are rosy for next year's projections. And I've heard comments that say, well, we're going to be fine, we're going to have the revenues to budget for more expenses in some of the departmental areas, and I'm suggesting that, and I'm hoping y'all will comment about that as we go deeper into the budget process, because I know some intergovernmental transfers are going to go down, and we're not going to get some of the grants and some of the other things that were forecasted for the future. So I would caution people not to read too much into these numbers. That's good for this year, it doesn't necessarily translate to next year.
It doesn't also say the extra monies that are going to come online for debt payments that we haven't
There you
had in
go.
the past.
There you go.
Well, I think our excitement in the tax base and sales tax numbers are that we don't see a downward trend anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, when we budgeted, the last couple of years, 10% decrease in sales taxes, and to see, a slight percentage uptick. We still have a long way to go to make up what we were receiving from 2008. So, it's not anything to get, overly joyous about that we have extra revenue. What it's joyous about is that it's helping us avoid some difficult decisions that we were going to have to make. So, I think overall we're trending well. We're on target. The projections the staff has given us for the end of the year, we look good for expenditures. So I don't see anything that is going to crop up in the last 90 days here that will be unexpected, and I'll have to come back and pay you a visit and say something came up. So we feel good about things, But that's just in making our numbers for this year, and then next year's a whole different ballgame. And actually, I'm going to expand a little bit on my manager comments tonight on what I've seen so far and what we're looking at going forward.
The only other item I have is Mr. Crumpton did ask me to give you an update on the high school project. Through February 28th, we have spent $9,756,000 and some change on that project today, through February 28th. Okay. So, and I will try to start adding that each month.
9,000 or 9 million?
9,757,000 roughly. So I will start trying to keep you updated on that each month. Just be a part of that. Okay. Any questions on that report?
All right, we're gonna go into the CIP and go ahead and present it to you. Y'all get 30 days basically to go over it before we hold a public hearing on April 18th to go over it, and then the board can do with it as it wishes at that time. The total capital funds requested from departments over the next 5 years total a little over $98 million. This was a $13 million decrease from last year, basically because of the projected expenditures at Lee County High School. So going forward, we have less to spend there, so that took the total requested down. I've recommended a 5-year plan of a little over $63 million. It's a $6 million increase over last year's recommended plan. If approved, the county will finish or start several projects next year, one being the Caterpillar requirements for the Clyde Ryan Road extension and improvements to the Transmatic building, which would be funded from IDF and EDA grants with no local dollars for next year. As I said earlier, the Board of Education will be completing the Lee Senior High School project next year, and in the coming months, we'll be talking to you about the basement area of the courthouse and the renovations there for the sheriff, emergency management, clerk of court, and 911 services. For those of you who will be attending the Progress Energy Sharon Harris drill on April 26th, you'll see why we're advocating more space for our emergency management folks. It'll be a tight fit this year as we get more and more people in there for that drill, and it's becoming very difficult to function in that area. Going forward, the majority of the capital projects that we're looking at over the next 5 years deal with K through 12 in the community college system. We would address a little over $49 million in capital expenditures under this plan. None in the next, really in the next 2 years that would be new or a new project. So, we really don't have an ability to fund right now. We would need additional revenues. We'd have to go borrow funds, and then we'd have to pay them back. So right now, the next 2 years, we're not recommending any borrowing. And then after that 2 year period, we'll take a look. But as you can see from the list, we're getting into a situation with East and West Lee middle schools that looks very reminiscent of what happened at Lee Senior. So we want to try to address their concerns and issues at the middle schools, so we can extend the life of those two schools and not have to go through major renovations of those two schools. And then I think it's their goal to eliminate the modular units at the elementary schools. And so, the elementary projects, the $10 million expansion in the new elementary school, which I pushed off beyond the next 5 years, would address those issues. So, whether you want kids going in trailers or not is a policy decision, and I'm sure the Board of Education would tell you that's not the best environment, but, we can argue that. And then under community college, I think we all know and have seen the growth that the community college is going under. Our unemployment rate, I think, has a lot to do with that increased enrollment. and the community college is asking for the additional space. And with them, we just fund, the facilities. We don't provide any current expense for teachers or anything outside of the operation of the facilities. So, those are really the big ticket items are in education. The other items we're trying to do is a pay as you go type situation. So, we'll be giving you some information coming soon that shows that the county has very little debt left in non-education areas. We have some parks and recreation debt that was associated with the 2006 COPS, and there's one other thing.
Public improvement bond still outstanding for the industrial park
That's
and
right.
for our old voting machines, and then there's a couple lease purchases that are still
Right.
outstanding.
But 98% of the debt is in education, so it's hard to fund schools without it. But now's the process. The board gets to go through, review the projects, and determine what was should be priorities, and then the staff will work towards trying to fund those priorities long term. But I don't see, with the borrowing we just did at Lee Senior, I see us out still a few more years before we can borrow again.
John?
Yes, sir.
Under the FY 11-12, the $15,287,000 is reasonably comfortably factored in already to your planning. So, in other words,
Yes, sir.
we'll look at that. There's not a lot of flexibility there. You're saying two things. One we have to do, the other is optional. That is.
Well, the emergency operations center in the basement is an optional deal. But if we don't spend half of the 911 fund, which roughly is $750,000 by the end of next fiscal year, we'll lose that one-time opportunity to use it in non-911 expenditures. We already have, we moved the 500,000, then we get another 750,000. So you got 1.2 million that you got that can go to that project. So, we added a little bit extra to try to make sure we got everything done. If we committed that, some of that would have to come out of fund balance, but it's not a huge amount. But the industrial park is contingent upon the IDF and the EDA grants coming through, and then of course we already have the money for the high school.
So just for, I'm sure these folks understand that the process of sort of a roll forward. Every 5 years we continue to project, and we have to take care of the present year and give the staff ideas as to what our priorities are, even though they can change from year to year according to conditions on the ground. But the coming year, you're pretty well satisfied that this is doable, and
It's not. If you take out the high school, we're not proposing a lot.
Yeah.
In the following 2 years, I put the courthouse expansion there, really to bring to the commissioner's attention that the clerk of court is generating a ton of paperwork that she has to keep, and she's busting at the seams in her office, and now she's basically taking over the basement.
What are the chances on keeping that renovation within the $1.2 million that we're going to pick up in the 9/11 funds?
I have a meeting with our architect tomorrow, who's doing the jail expansion or the jail renovation for the light issue and the padded cell issue, and he has a schematic, and that's what we're meeting tomorrow, is to find out some detailed numbers on what we can do in that basement. And if it's not close to 1.2 million, I'd be a little leery about going way over that at this point.
You can pull it in. I've looked at that down in the basement. I think you can pull that in to kind of get it within the balance of it.
Yes. But she is the clerk of court, and looking forward to her, trying to figure out how to satisfy her space needs for, let's say, the next 10 years. there's no way we can just hold her in the basement. She can't go off-site with her storage. We've taken as much as we can off-site for the Register of the Deeds and the clerk, but most of the records she has to keep.
Well, Mr. Manager, I would.
It has to be paper copies, can't be electronic?
I think I beg to differ on that. I think that there are electronic document management systems that other counties are using, and that I don't think we're required to keep as much paper as she's keeping, and not for as long anyway. She's got a certain suspense period that she's got to keep it, and I think it's up to 3 years on most records. And I just tell you, we need to investigate that a little further, because I know she's keeping droves of file drawers of material, some of which I'm amazed that you can find anything down there.
I disagree. I think there's some, especially on deeds and things like that.
Certainly those things can be have to be retained in paper, but not on site if they're available electronically. I think we need to do some more investigation on that, because I know the AOC has some very specific allowances up there, and we need to check into those.
See, the Register of Deeds has gone electronic, and most of the deed searches and that kind of stuff is done electronically. We're talking about the court documents and the the filings that are done by law enforcement and the district attorneys and that kind of stuff that I have questioned the clerk on, and she says she has to have hard copy on. But it doesn't say we can't investigate it and do it, and that's why it's pushed off, out there a little bit to investigate further. But the real hump that we've got to, that I think we really need to take a look at, and this kind of will go right into my budget discussion, is that the county with schools is now getting hit, from both sides. We're getting hit from the current expense, and we're also getting hit from the capital. And the one meeting I went to with the public forum, we heard it again that we're not actually giving a lot of the property tax revenues to current capital, which has been true, but that was after agreement with the Board of Education that lottery proceeds would go towards current capital. It would not go towards debt. We had, I don't know why, we had the same feeling in Scotland County when I was there, but we did not feel good about lottery proceeds long term. So it was not a good pledge for debt, but it made a good sense to use it for current capital. Well, we lost $750,000 of our $1.5 million this year. If the governor's budget went through, we would lose another $600,000. So, based on their plan, they've taken current capital and basically used it as their repair fund, for lack of a better word, for the schools. Where I would tell you 10 to 15 years ago, that repair fund was in current expense. It's been shifted out of current expense into current capital, and the money that was in current expense went towards the last round of teachers that the state decided not to pay for: band, art, music, PE, the list can go on. And so that was the last time we got shifted on teachers. And you can just see this coming again with these discussions, and that is the county going to be required to step up to the plate? And what is the legislature going to do? What is the governor going to do? If the governor's budget went through, we would play a major role in filling the gap that the state would create at the education level. And what I'm seeing and what has happened over the last 3 years, and we heard it earlier by one of our public comments, is that county government has cut, and we have cut our budgets. Starting with the first one I did here 3 years ago, and every time we turn back around, what we cut has gone to education, except in the 1 year where we cut our budget 10%, we asked them to cut theirs 4%. So, but once again, we took the bigger cut in effort to preserve education spending. And I think I put in an email recently, I feel like we're on an avalanche. We got capital, and you can see it right there. We got the capital requirements from the Board of Education, and now we're getting the current expense requirements. And it's just becoming more and more and more of our budget.
And the debt service requirement.
And the debt service requirement. So, I have a concern. And so when I tell people that, hey, the county's budget is looking good, our budget does look good. It's when you factor in the pressures that we're getting from education, namely the K through 12, where we're going to have to make some tough decisions going forward. I will tell you where we are so far in our budget. I've gone through over half of the department's budgets. If you take out some capital items that we use fund balance to pay for, our budget is basically neutral for all the departments. I asked for a neutral budget. In some cases, I asked folks to go ahead and tell me what they needed, knowing that we would be cutting them back to a neutral, namely IT. I need to know what's out there that we need to help become more productive, but in the end, we've got to pull everybody back to neutral. So all the county departments will be close to neutral. So that leaves what's going to happen with state funding for some of our departments, which we've taken some guesses at, and what's going to happen with the education request. And based on the calendar, the revised calendar that we got from the Board of Education, and the process they're going to go through, I don't really feel comfortable getting too far out in front of what they're doing, and basically dictating their work to them. I think they understand that we need a zero budget increase from them, but they still have to go through their process. And we were scheduled to present our budget to you on May 2nd. I may ask that we wait 2 weeks and present it May 16th. And that way that gets the Board of Education through their process, and in all likelihood, if you listen to the leadership of the General Assembly, they'll be finished with their budget and off to the governor, or at least we'll have a pretty good idea. So we may delay sending the entire document to you. I do have some concerns with next year's budget, as I said, and I do think that we need to have some options open for next year, and kind of like what we did 2 years ago. I feel compelled to go ahead and ask for a hiring freeze for the rest of the year, and ask the board to put that into motion, because if you don't do that, then it's not effective on the health department and DSS department. Also would like to go back through the review of employees who are eligible for retirement, see who's committed to retiring, and possibly develop a plan to induce more to retire. Really just trying to get more positions open in case we need to cut, because I don't want to have to do a rift for next year. So ask for those 2 actions by the board.
Do you want us to, first of all, you need a motion from this board to set a public hearing on the CIP plan for?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I went right into my report without that. I'm sorry.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We schedule a public hearing for April 18, 2011, 6 p.m. as soon as we can to reach an agenda on the
CIP plan.
And also, I'd like to go ahead and add item A and B in this report to it too. Place a hiring freeze in place, and talk to people who are eligible for retirement and develop a plan, to encourage.
Can I do all that in one motion?
You probably need to do 2. One for the CIP and one for the budget actions.
It's getting late.
I have a motion to present the CIP plan for a public hearing on April 18th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion on the other 2 items.
Okay, which would be placing a hiring freeze for all departments effective immediately, John?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Instructing staff to conduct a review of all eligible retirement employees and discuss putting a plan in place to encourage them to retire.
Okay, so the motion is from your page 89, paragraphs A and B toward the bottom. So is there any further discussion?
I've got one quick question. How do you stand, you and your staff? You know, we go year after year of the county making all the sacrifices, or most of the sacrifices. Are you and your staff having or running into difficulties? Space, for example.
We do have some space issues with with DSS and the health department, and once again, it has a lot to do with records management, and you know, we've cut quite a few employees, you know, over the last 3 years. So it's not from increasing headcount that we have space issues. It's really from customer service and filing issues, and you know, right now we're you know, we're taking a look at that, but we're not doing anything too drastic just yet, because you know, we have other things that we need to do. I will say that the pressure on the employees is starting to get to the employees. You know, we've done quite a bit to try to improve morale over the last few years, but especially in the high customer service areas, DSS, health, senior services, the cuts or the inability to grow the departments, especially DSS, to grow with the level of services that we're now providing has led to a lot of the stress in the departments. So, yeah, we're having some issues with the ability to provide service, but as I tell the staff, you know, I feel pretty good that this is really the last, you know, we're at the bottom of the barrel here. This is it. This should be the last one that we've got to go through like this. And but we knew that 3 years ago too. So, no, I think we predicted this. We just knew that there were some things running out at this time, and that some things that were going to come on. We also knew that the state was going to have their issues in this particular year, and that would affect us. So, you know, yeah, and I would say morale is a little low right now.
Well, I would think, Madam Chair, that we ought to get some kind of summary of the county's needs to address while we're going through the budget process. You know, you expect people to come in and do a bang-up job under some of the worst conditions that we've faced in a long time. So I feel it's just as important for us to look at our own needs as it is to look at others.
Okay.
I did ask for that in the budget. So you'll see in the requested column what they, you know, and I don't think anybody went overboard. There's a request for what they feel like they need to operate, and then I'm reducing them back to zero increase. And so you're going to see that gap, and you're going to see that difference when we present the budget. And you'll also, you know, I won't change their explanations of why they wanted, you know, those increases or needed those increases.
I'm going to say one thing. I haven't heard the word cut come out of your mouth tonight. You've said zero, but you haven't said cut.
No, he was talking about, though, county, when he said neutrality, correct me if I'm
saying
wrong, you're
neutrality.
talking about from county resources. You're not talking about what happens as a result of federal and state cuts. Because, see, that's neutrality from the county resourcing standpoint.
Yeah, and we do, we have, you know, we brought up Hillcrest. We do have an issue with Hillcrest going next year, which we need to discuss. We have quite a gap in their revenue for next year.
And I tell you,
Basically,
social services, we're facing some significant problems in social services. I mean, potentially, we could be losing up to $3 million in that area.
In federal funds?
Yeah, federal and state.
Of course, some of that is doesn't have a direct impact on us, but it's, you know, even if it's $1 million or $1.5 million, you've got on the programs, and then sometimes when those programs get cut, then you have issues with employees. But we have a natural turnover in some departments. That's why going ahead and doing the freeze now, you know, we may have positions that we can shift people into, and you know, that's really the idea here.
Well, let me handle that motion before we forget it. You got that motion to give John the power to do A and B on page 89. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay.
All right. One last thing, we heard some discussion today about scenarios 1, 2, and 3 for the school board. Just assuming that we don't have any revenue that we could increase to give to the schools. I calculated what those tax rate increases would be to cover each scenario, and I furnished that to the board. So, the top end is, almost 18 cents, and the low end is, almost 7 cents. So, I don't think, and just talking to some people, obviously I know people who work for the schools, and I know people who have interest in the schools. I don't think they clearly understand the magnitude of the dollars that we're talking about. I mean, we're talking a big amount. I mean, this is large. It's not something the county could just have in petty cash and cover. This is significant dollars that, if we were to ever take it on, would become a permanent expenditure to the county. So this is not just a one-time deal, it's a long-term deal, and it's like, trying to buy a car. Sometimes it's hard to write that check. You just use the existing car and make it go as far as it can go, but it's going to be a tough deal for us. I know it's a tough deal for the schools. We've had to do a lot of cutting the last few years, so we know what they're going through and what they're facing. But I also know there was an election back in November, and I know what the voters said back then. So increasing property taxes probably is not a very good option at this point.
I know this. Is there anybody on this board that would even consider a property tax increase in this economic climate?
Population can't afford it.
Well, I'm going to move on. I think I've talked about budget quite a bit. Animal control. Yes, sir.
One thing I think this board should focus on is trying to simplify our explanation and our position. A lot of folks will hear how easy it is for us to pick up the tab because we don't give enough information out about what we're faced with and what the long-term effect and impact will be for doing that. It's easy to sit here and say, well, just raise the taxes until you see 10 or 15 cents come on the table and you add it to what you already paid. Then it hits home. But sometimes we try, in my opinion, try and give too many sophisticated responses instead of saying, pretty simple, add these two numbers, this is what you'll pay, this is what comes out.
Just some ongoing issues, animal control ordinance revisions. The subcommittee of animal control ordinance committee for the Board of Health will meet on March 30th at 6 p.m. to review what we sent back to them and review all the information that was compiled. I don't expect them to take a long time with that. I expect them to come back pretty quickly with a recommendation back to us, and hopefully we'll have that ready for the second meeting in April. We have one more payment to make on the San Lee Dam renovations, and that's to pay out the holdback. So we're just about finished with that. We get the bids for the natural light in the padded cell tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So we're going to take a real good hard look at the natural light issue and see if there's something else we can't do.
I would request that you get an itemization as detailed as possible on that so we can isolate what the costs for the natural light are, because I personally am still working on trying to get us some relief on that, and I haven't given up yet. I would like to avoid taxpayers having to foot the bill for that this year if we can avoid it.
The natural
Yeah, the bids are separate, so
Good. Super.
we should be able to peel that out. We are having a tremendous amount of trouble with the OT Sloan pool right now and trying to get it open. We have leakage in the diving well, and we are working quickly to try to have that scheduled for Memorial Day. And due to the cost of the repairs and the cost it's going to cost us to open that, Parks and Recreation is informing that they've decided not to open the Horton Pool again this summer. You know, I think they're going to review, the advisory board's going to review the long-term use of the pool and maybe make a recommendation to change what's going on over at Horton Park with regards to the pool.
I would ask that the Recreation Department or committee certainly offer more than 1 or 2 public hearings on that issue before a decision is made or recommendations sent forward.
Moving on to my last item, the indoor iron furnace. As you know, we were approached, I think everybody knows, we were approached by the Railroad House Museum Association in the state of North Carolina about participating in the stabilization project for the furnace, roughly $600,000 project. The actual request ended up being to us $125,000 participation from local government. Given the timetable for the commitment, you know, obviously we couldn't. They gave us notice on a Tuesday. They wanted a commitment on a Friday, and it was in between board meetings, so I could not give them that commitment. But we were contacted late last week. They are still looking to us for a response as to whether we would fund the match of $125,000 or not. So I would leave that to the board for discussion, and whatever it is they would, you all prefer to do on that. And that's pretty much my report, except for the upcoming events. So, which is it.
Okay. Our favorite time of the agenda, commissioner comments. Mr.
Do
Pass.
we need to make a...
Have we taken all action on everything that we need to do?
Do we need to take action on the $125,000?
Have discussion on it. We were actually approached, and it's an interesting thing, we were talking about conflicts of interest earlier, and you know, I've enjoyed serving on the airport authority, but when an item comes to the airport authority, I have to put on my airport authority hat and tell folks what I feel about it. But we were approached to use or to agree, and I don't really think the airport authority has to agree to it based on the agreement, but use that $125,000 out of the airport reserve fund. There's $630,000 in the airport reserve fund, and knowing the projects that the airport has put forward to the Department of Transportation in the matches that would require, you know, pretty much would deplete the fund if they were awarded those projects. So, of course, at that time, we all voted unanimously not to, but with the airport authority. So, I have to disclose that. That's the, you know, that's the airport authority vote. So, we voted not to, you know, go along with that. But it's really up to this board and the city's board what to do with those funds. So, you know.
Actually, John, maybe for our next meeting, if you could make a copy of that agreement that was done by this board and the airport authority. And I've looked at that, and you know, that reserve fund is taxpayer dollars, right?
It is taxpayer dollars, and I will tell you that it's a unique situation.
It's not a private slush fund for the airport.
They use that money though as part of their budget too.
They use, right now, because fuel sales have gone down so much that they're using the tax money that comes in on the annual basis. There's still an increase going into the fund, but you know, we're using about $200,000, and it's generating over $200,000 a year in property taxes. The airport, you know, the funding mechanism that we set up there is quite unique. It is the envy of airports around the state, I will tell you that. And the Department of Transportation uses it as a model when they talk to folks about if they want to build a new airport or how to handle funding situations for airports. And we also, you know, got to understand that, you know, we're their banker. You know, so if anything came up they would be coming to us and the city 50-50 for things, which, you know, at this time of day. So it's really, you know, it's really a great situation. I will tell you that. It's unique. It took some foresight and some, you know, guts, I would say, from the board that set that up to do that. And obviously it had a lot to do with the city and the county participating together in the construction of the new airport. But
There's a terminology in there that any excess will be used for projects, you know, that will, the city and the county find mutually benefit. So I don't think I've ever seen an operating budget for them. So I'd also like to see a 5-year history of what their annual operating budget has been. So if we could have that to us for information.
we do have that, and we do put their budget as part of our budget. And so when you approve our annual budget, you're approving the allocation of the money from the Airport Reserve Fund to them in the annual budget. So I don't want anybody, you know, how did they get access to that money on an annual basis? It is done in our annual budget as to what they request. So it is in there.
You remember last year, John, how much out of our annual budget went to the airport?
Our annual budget? Nothing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we have not, since the fund was set up, the city and the county have not put any, well, it's all taxed. I mean, it's the taxes on the airplanes that are out there. You know, it's personal.
So they get that, and the county per se does it, but the volunteer fire department, Larry Kelly gets that in his, how's that work?
Yeah, there's a fire tax on that, and they get that.
The fire tax rate on that. But other than that, any of the personal property taxes on the planes?
There's also some taxes on some of the private hangars that were built out there. And, you know, there's some nice hangars out there. So, you know, it's a growing entity out there. You know, we built the new T hangars 2 years ago. They're full, and we now have a waiting list of double digits.
How long do they have to pay off the interest-free loan or whatever we gave them?
It is the best interest-bearing account we have. We're charging them 8% on that.
I was going to ask you, John, do you remember when they built those hangars? Was that grant money?
The last round of T hangars, the city and the county loaned them the money. They actually did a loan consolidation. They owed us some money on another loan for T hangars, so we combined them together, and you know, they built the new T hangars. And
what's longer on that loan?
I'm not real sure. Is that a 10-year note or
I think it was 10 years.
Yeah, so we have to have 8
about
years.
6 or 7 more years.
Oh, it was just 5.
Time's flying by, so it's, you know, it's good. It's at 8%, and you know, they were dogging Hal and myself. You know, we serve on the board, and we're charging them 8%. They were wanting to refinance, and we told them no. It was the best interest note we had. There was no way.
So what's your recommendation on the furnace?
If I had to recommend, I'd recommend we pay 50% of the 125, but we take it out of capital reserve fund. You know, that's what it's there for. It's for emergencies. You know, and if we need to do it, then that's what we should do. But
what I read is we're going to lose it if we don't do something the next couple of years.
that's right. So
If we lose it, it means it doesn't become a national historic site, which will never become a state park, so.
and I do think that we need, you know, we probably need to do an analysis on the airport's fund balance and just find out how much money they will need going forward, and if there is any excess.
Maybe that loan ends a while from at 8%.
So should we table that until we find that information out?
That wasn't an action thing anyway, I don't think, was it?
No, it would be up to the board. It would, if the board felt comfortable pledging the $62,500 tonight, that would be
Give us
fine.
the information on the next meeting, and we'll take a look at it.
I tried.
And John, might I ask that maybe someone from the indoor furnace or railroad house could, perhaps even Bob Bridwell, help describe and discuss the fine points to that.
I think Ray Covington has indicated that he'll be here to speak. Okay, Commissioner comments, Mr. Pascal? No? Mr. Hayes?
Yes, I have something, and two things. I'd like to thank all of you for your participation in that webinar. I think that was very useful and very much in line with what the state board was hoping for, and I think we found out some ways that we can share with the public more and more about our budget process, so that we have total transparency there. I'd like to put some thoughts down about the education situation that we are presently facing, and I wanted to share with you because I'm going to be sharing with the public. And whether you agree or not is that's your choice. But I needed to say this, and this is the way the comments go, and I'll make it as quickly as possible, just one page. Parents, students, teachers, school administrators and staff, Lee County Board of Education members, citizens of Lee County, and fellow commissioners. As one commissioner who matriculated through the public schools of Sanford and Lee County, my heart goes out to our educational partners on the tortuous path we walked together this year, facing a state and local budget shortfall we had nothing to do with, and yet had everything to do with. As a result, we have not experienced anything quite like this moment before. It is frightening. It is disconcerting to me because it threatens to undo in a short time, if we are not careful, what many generations have worked hard to build: a good public school education for our children, enabled by a first-rate public education system striving and succeeding day by day to meet higher student achievement goals in order that our young citizens might compete successfully in the global future. Success which, by the way, also helps to secure our own. Just look around our public school system and take stock. We cannot afford to drop out of this race in which we have invested so much. I believe that we came to this point together. I believe that we must depend on each other now by working together to survive it. And we will survive it as a family if we trust each other and share openly all possible ideas and actions in order to avoid and minimize the worst of it. I am convinced that the problems we now face are in the societal mania of excesses we enjoyed for many years living above our means as a nation. The pain we all now suffer in our diminished economy and horrible unemployment is a wake-up call. But it must not be viewed by elected leaders as a political tool or opportunity to point fingers or to reap a kind of revenge. This would be mistaken and unworthy of a great county, which can and must survive this moment and move on to higher ground. I urge everyone again to think about the array of choices we may have, to think out of the box, to go to Raleigh as necessary, and to visit more among ourselves to find a solution to this educational budget crisis. We must recognize that the Lee County Public School District is the largest employer in Lee County with 10,000 students, 1,000 employees, and facilities that are finally a source of pride and promise for the citizens here. Lee County public education must also be considered an economic strength, attractive to new businesses and industry, considering where to locate their facilities and families. We cannot carelessly, defenselessly, let these hard-won assets be savaged without a fight joined by all and starting now. Public education is too often taken for granted, and our teachers are woefully undervalued. We must help make the public aware of this, gain their support, and together understand the challenge we face and the precipice on which we so precariously stand. Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, just talking a little bit about what Richard just said. Dr. Moss and I plan to go out and tour schools tomorrow. And I wanted to do it with him so that we're seeing the same things. So, anyway, it's been a long time since I've been in school. It's been a long time since I've had children in school, so I'd like to see what the curriculum is, how the schools are, what we pay for, so that's what I plan to do tomorrow.
Okay, good. Doc? Are we still on for our 7:30 meeting in the morning, by the way?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Maybe we'll,
Yeah,
we'll get out of here in time.
I just hope,
Keep on.
I hope we can all remember this, you know, if whatever teacher layoff or ever layoff the Board of Education has means another person on an employment line. And, you know, if there's any way we can avoid that, we need to avoid that, the way I see that. You know, all we're doing is putting people in an unemployment line. If there's a way to get around it, we need to get around it. I don't know what we can do, but we need to look at all the possibilities.
I'd just like to say I had what I thought was a pretty interesting and enjoyable visit out to Southern Lee High School this last week, and spent 3 hours in the school observing classroom activities, talking to teachers, and actually to a couple of students who were available. And I learned a lot, and I think it helped me identify some areas where I think we need to do some more introspection and identify perhaps some opportunities for budget cutting, so that, or I should say cost cutting, so that we can balance the budget. And the teachers and the students actually are the ones that seem to have ideas. And there's been a lot of conversation about cuts and how bad things are going to be, but what you haven't heard in the dialogue going on right now are, here's some suggestions, bottom-up suggestions about what we can do to save money in the school system so that we don't have to lay off people, or that if we do, we can do it intelligently. And I'll give you a good example. The principal of the school outlined for me something I'd never heard before. And she said, you know, we can't turn the lights off in Southern Lee High School in the hallways. 1 in 4 lights stay on 24/7. She said it's not, she didn't think it was a security thing. She just said they're hardwired, we can't turn them off. And I'm thinking to myself, how long has that school been open? How much energy have we burned burning lights all night long? And I said, you know, I promised her faithfully, I will come back and do everything I can to try to resolve that, to figure out a way where we can turn the lights off, pull the ballast, do whatever we got to do in the lights so that we're not burning energy unnecessarily. You know, there was no disagreement about that. All of us in that room agreed that we need to do things like that. These are tough times. I think we've heard that, you know, all across the board, and there are still things we need to be doing that are intelligent and practical that can save teachers' jobs. And I'll close. I was going to say a lot more, but I'll close because I know Mr. Reeves needs to get out of here. I promise you faithfully that there's not one person sitting at this table that wants to see a single teacher laid off, unless they have some personal gripe with one particular one. But I will tell you that I don't want to see a single teacher laid off, and I've said that publicly, and I'll continue to say that. Teachers, teachers' assistants, textbooks, and facilities are my priorities in public education. I mean, I was a product of public education. And I think we owe it to ourselves to have the best, most efficient and effective public education system we can create in Lee County. That doesn't mean that we got to keep doing business as usual. And these are tough times, so we need to roll our sleeves up, spend the time, take the energy, expend the energy necessary to identify everywhere we can cut, everywhere we can consolidate and merge activities, do things more intelligently. And I tell you, we can save millions doing that. And that's not an idle promise. I mean, we can do it, but we all got to work together. As I've heard earlier, I heard Richard say this, and I've heard other comments and public comments tonight. We need to work together and decrease the rhetoric and the vitriol and work more intelligently towards a solution, a common solution. So let's stop talking about, you know, how draconian things are, and every person, elected official, we got to contact. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Contacting your elected officials helps us know where we can go find cost savings. But let's make it productive. Let's not make it full of invective. And that's what I think I sense a lot of that going in a momentum building. So, you know, I met with the school board chairman this morning, and we had, I think, a meeting of the minds. It was great. I think he had a lot of good ideas and things that we need to do collaboratively. We need to shine a lot of light on our budget process as we go forward, so people feel like they're engaged and involved in what we're doing to balance the budget this year. And I just want to reassure the public and this board that I have every intent to work diligently to that end, and it's not my desire in any way, shape, or form to cause discomfort or angst in the public or in the school system. That I'm as committed as anyone out there to trying to make ends meet without laying off teachers and teachers' assistants.
Sounds like you're looking at common sense savings.
There you go. There you go.
Mr. Reeves?
I want to make sure we're finished. All right. I would ask the board if all of you would join me in offering our condolences to Miss Gracie McLeod, wife of former Mayor Rex McLeod, one of the greatest elected officials and person that I've ever known in my lifetime. I don't know that this town would be where it is today if not for him, and the work he's done with children over the years is amazing, amazing. So I would ask that we as a board acknowledge Ms. Gracie McLeod and her family, the former Mayor Rex McLeod, and add it to our minutes in closing.
Okay.
We're gonna send a card to, with their signatures on it, or what?
That would be great.
I think he was a very humble, very gracious man. I met him first working through Highway to Healing, and he followed me in scheduling, and we always had a good visit together, so.
Very good man.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna German. You got a book over there.
I was just going to point out that when you make school appointments, I think all of us have been invited to the schools, either by teachers or administrators, so it's not like we're popping in to be spies. I don't go anywhere where I haven't been invited. But I like, if you haven't looked in the additional items of interest, Mr. Womack has an after-action review. And Charlie, if you would, do that. If any of us visit these schools, this after-action review is a nice way to kind of cap things up. And Gaynell, I've got a couple things to give you that came to me at my home address that I don't know what to do with. So I thought at first I was getting money because this came from the Board of Commissioners at Cumberland County, but it had to do with the Veterans Council and those bronze hand things, So I will give this to you, and you can communicate it to the others and decide what we need to do with this coin that came from them. And other than that, I don't have anything else. So.
Will we adjourn?
Do I motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Good morning or something like that.